Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Wins Pocono and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course. He's headed back to the championship for Steven Wilson, winner at Texas Motor Speedway. Parker White wins at Phoenix and will fight for an NASCAR championship in 2024. From iRacing's virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 2024 iRacing Bristol 500. Well, the stars of the NASCAR Cup Series are headed to Thunder Valley this weekend. So are some of the top talents in iRacing's NASCAR iRacing Open Series. And tonight we bring you live top split coverage and another one of iRacing's special events here in 2024. Happy that you're with us for this special presentation of iRacing on RaceSpotTV. Alongside Evan Pasoka, myself, happy to be joined by Derek Watson in the booth. Derek, we covered some Cup cars at Bristol just a few days ago here on RaceSpotTV. Tonight, though, it is full Cup Series length, 500 miles of racing laps, I should say, is standing in between us and a checkered flag. This race guaranteed to be full of drama and, I think most importantly, a lot of attrition.
Yeah, one of the beautiful special events offered by iRacing almost every year, Evan. This event stands out as a true test of endurance around this fastest half mile I can think of anywhere around the world. Look at the schedule. We're here at the Bristol 500 on the right side of your screen. Only a few left, Evan. The Knoxville Nationals, the Bathurst 1000, Petit Le Mans makes for a busy October. And then you see there a few more. The Festival, the Fuji 8 Hours, the SCCA, the Winter Derby, in a Chili Bowl. iRacing has an event almost every month of the year, Evan. There's a great reason to get involved and have some fun.
Yes, several per month. And of course, on the oval side of things here, just recently removed from a Brickyard 400 special event not that long ago. It is the last time we'll see these NASCAR Cup cars, but with Knoxville, the Winter Derby, and the Chili Bowl to come for the oval sim racers, there is plenty of excitement still to behold. And we talk about this Bristol Motor Speedway that bills itself as the world's fastest half mile, despite the fact that its straightaways are barely 200 yards long. It is is a very fast racetrack. The secret is in the variable banking in the 300-yard wide open corners. You might not have much room to accelerate off one of the corners before you got to shut it down for the next, but with steep banking up to 30 degrees, there's almost no loss of speed by the time you get there, and it is that infamous all concrete racing surface that provides great traction and should provide us with some great action here tonight. The drivers have been participating in different splits of this Bristol 500 already through the last couple of nights. These will continue through the rest of the weekend, so if you're joining us and didn't know that the special event was going on, don't worry, plenty more split times throughout the rest of the weekend. We encourage you to jump down and participate in them, but we're happy that you're with us for this one, Derek. The top split, this will feature a lot of drivers from the NASCAR championships alike and a lot of drivers who may have already been testing the waters earlier in the week.
This really is sort of the who's who when it comes to the split. We're going to see the names in a moment, and that's the beauty of these special events, Evan. It's a chance for non-eNASCAR drivers to come out here and kind of rub elbows, you know, maybe trade some paint, trade some bumpers, and see how they rank up against some of the best in the sim.
Well, let's go trackside and introduce you to them. This is the RaceSpot starting grid. The number 2 seeded driver based on iRating in this race is number 1. He won last night's top split, and it is Garrett Maines looking to do it again. He will bring us to the green flag tonight. He is joined by California's Gabe McClenny on the number 2 spot. Back on row 2, third starting spot to the Canadian, the number 14 of James Houghton, to his outside, the 17 of Paul Bergoli in 4th. Back on row number 3, P5 starter tonight is J.R. Borborema. Into the outside, it is P6 starter Ronald Cross.
Moving back into P7, Patrick Gitter in that number 4 machine with Aaron Smith, the second on the outside in P8. You got Matt Diacani and Jose Acosta back in row 5 and 9th and 10th. And then Nicholas Vroman, who won Wednesday night's NIS Open Bristol 500, and Clayton Hoffman back there in P12.
In a field with an average SOF of 5,600, Jacob C. Schneider has the highest iRating of them all. He'll start 13th tonight with Jacob Brower in 14th. Tommy Gossett rolls from 15th. Jacob Schneider to the outside in the number 16 spot. Joseph Galutta 17th. At 18th is Brad Newman.
Moving back into P19 is Nathan Biggert with PB Henry in P20. Then you got Kagan Flickenstein and Jacob Klein, 21-22. And then back in row 12, John Wittendorf and Nicholas Padovic.
Next 3 drivers, the final tires to take a time to qualify. That'll be Cody Richardson, Oscar Enriquez, and Matt Cox, and then provisionals from that point back, so they'll be seeded based on iRating. James Holzer gets 28th, Tyler Latterell gets 29th, and Omar Diallo, P30.
Moving back to the last cars in the field, Graham Bolins in 31st, Maggie McGuire from New England back in that 20 car, that bright pink car, and then Vincent Crowe and Alan Pajari round out this 34 car field.
It's looked at the bottom at your starting grid. Let's talk tail of the tape tonight, and had alluded to it earlier. 500 laps at the world's fastest half mile means it is, big air quotes on this one, only a 250-mile race, Derek, but it is one of the toughest to get through. One could argue maybe even tougher than the Coke 600.
Oh, tougher by far. It's going to happen fast. Wrecks happen fast. You have to avoid anything and everything in front of you and hope that you made the right calls at the end of this. Maybe one of the toughest races to win it. At one point, Evan, one of the toughest tickets in sports was the Bristol 500.
The grandstands tower 160,000 strong, and we're happy that you're joining us on this Friday evening on RaceSpotTV. We're going to be racing well into the night, and at the end, we'll crown another iRacing special events top split winner. Garrett Maines has led almost 1,000 laps over the course of the last 2 nights. He's 1 for 2. Can he pick up his second? Pace car down and in. It's Maines in control. This is the Bristol 500. It's a 140-mile-an-hour hornet's nest. Maines leads lap number 1. Up and into the dirty stuff goes the 41 car, top side of the racetrack, losing a little bit of time there in the battle for second. That is James Houghton topside. Now getting up and on top. Cade McClelney on the inside of the racetrack. They will clear, and you could move that number 14 car to P2.
Not a surprise at all, by the way, Evan. You and I have seen that top lane really be dominant throughout the week as far as these races are concerned. But here's Nicholas Froman. As I said, he was the winner Wednesday night. So he's already won a Bristol 500, Evan, representing Ryko. And he wants to come out and do it again here, if possible.
Real tight quarters action. The 29 car you're looking at there is Jose Acosta. Looks like the base paint scheme on that Wolfpack Crew machine harkens back to the Jeff Gordon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle car back from a couple of years ago. It's a good deep cut there, as some of these drivers will run different sported paint schemes throughout the race. But remember, those numbers randomly assigned to them by the service based on iRating. So the driver who is number 1, in this case Jacob Schneider, has the highest iRating of all the drivers in the field. The driver with the lowest number, Alan Pajari, 34, he has the lowest, or the 34th highest iRating of all the drivers who registered for this session. So not everybody necessarily in the numbers you're used to seeing. That's an onboard look off the back bumper. Matt DiCiani, P10, with some side-by-side going on behind him as we try to get through these treacherous opening laps and build a bit of a rhythm for the night.
Yeah, and right now you're seeing that machine on the outside of Jose Acosta, I believe, right here, trying to get the momentum built. And he should be able to, because what he's able to do, Evan, is get a bigger run off of the corners. He's able to get in the gas sooner and get a bigger run. But right now, he's getting passed on the bottom. That is a trend you and I have not really seen happen that much so far this week. At least, back on Monday night, it was not the case. But that Ryko machine is hauling right now around this track. So here we are, 11 laps in, just that fast, Evan. I told you things happen fast at Bristol. Here we are now 12 laps in almost, and these drivers are well on their way in this race.
And you alluded to us seeing the top side be a strong lane. That's what we saw Monday here on RaceSpotTV in the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series playoffs. Drivers really struggled on the attack to make the passes on the bottom. Drivers would often kind of leave the inside tantalizingly open, forcing cars to try to make a move down there. We're not seeing that out of Garrett Maines. Maines is just kind of running his lineup there, but anybody who wants to advance their position, you're going to have to be topside at least early. We'll see once we get 200, 300, 400 laps in, does the bottom come to play. There's a look at the 31 of Oscar Enriquez in a battle. The two machine back up front now. Maines, again, leaving the bottom open. I don't think he's going to complain about Houghton getting the bottom spot. Now the 14 is going to try to pinch him up, but it's these runs off the banking that it makes the top side just such a formidable place to be when you're playing defense.
And what a great job by Maines here. Stuck to his line. He held into it, now right around the middle, just trying to dominate the run here. But the problem for both these drivers, Evan, is not very long from now, the words lap traffic are going to become a problem. Remember, it's only a half-mile track. My goodness, that was a close shot on the bumper there. But very, very quickly, they're going to find lap traffic, and that may be where Houghton's able to make a move and get around Garrett Maines when Maines is dealing with that lap traffic.
Houghton got a bit of the fence. He drops off with the leader. That battle simmers down for a moment. Checking over the 33, that's Ronald Cross, down a spot from where he started. And Patrick Gitter wants to make it down 2 spots as the 4 is trying to bounce back and get back into the position in which he started this race. All these cars inside of the top 10, but already 4 seconds off of the race leader. And when you're clocking lap times 15 seconds and change in length, we are really going to be talking about lap traffic being a huge point of conversation as this race goes on, at least for the moment. Still everybody on the lead lap in this race, but that will not last forever. Gabe McClelney in the number 7 car under attack. That is Paul Bragoli through on the outside lane. At 17, was able to get topside on the 7. It swings the advantage in favor of the attacker. Bergoli easily clears for the number 3 spot, and back up front, fighting for the lead again, but Houghton only being able to get under the 2 car still.
And obviously, as you said, Garrett Maines had an incredible week here at Bristol. Has led 400 laps in each of the first 2 races he's done this week. Would hope to accomplish that again and pull off his 2nd win of the week. But Garrett's apparently loves this track. If you can lead 400 laps 2 days in a row, I think you're doing all right. But here comes Houghton to the outside. This is the best run we've seen, Evan. And he is front, border, and clear. There he is, new leader, James Houghton.
The 14 machine is through, and it is no surprise that it was the first opportunity that he got to the outside of the 2, made it look easy, and I would expect Houghton to start to pull away with this one, as the 14, though, now clear for the race lead, not in clear racetrack, going to have to start to deal with some of the lap traffic that we had alluded to. Here's a look at Jacob Brower fighting with the 21 car. He makes a move on Jose Acosta in a battle for 14th and 15th spot, again courtesy of the outside lane.
Watch the battle here as they come down to another corner. And Evan, this track is so technical. It's so tough. It doesn't seem that way, right? It seems like it's simple. You just kind of have your foot in the gas and you turn. But I encourage our viewers, hold up something in front of you, whether it be a book, a folder, something kind of square, a rectangular in front of you. And every time you see a car enter a turn, turn with it. And then, angle it back out on the straightaway, and you're going to find out just how quick these straightaways happen. It's, as you said, very fast straightaways and very long corners. It almost feels like this is a full arm workout here when you do this Bristol 500.
And doing a 100-lap race, 250-lap race, tough enough. Doing a full 500-lap race is when you can, to your point, actually get pretty fatigued on the sim. Again, varying levels of force feedback these drivers will be running, but even if that you turned it all the way off, it is going to be a workout, especially with a higher percentage of these laps if they stay green. Aaron Smith, the second in the number 18 machine, and try to make his mark in this one. He's already up a couple of spots, but then trickled back and has been struggling the last few times around. But he's got the outside. That's going to be in his favor. Brad Newman trying to pass him on the bottom. The driver out of the Australia-New Zealand region on the surface. One of only 3 international drivers in the field. Can't pass him down low. And now you see the 15 of Graham Bolin taking advantage of that hill swing by on the outside. And Graham Bolin, who's got a championship 4 date on the line in a couple of weeks in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, out here participating in this NIS Open race.
Evan, keep an eye on that blue car on the bottom, that multicolored blue car. That's Brad Newman. You called him out earlier. He is struggling right now. Watch that car through some of the corners. When he gets off the corner, that back end just kind of flops around like a fish. That is not a good sign here. That means he's having a hard time with the handling. The car is getting loose. He's probably getting on the gas a little sooner than the car wants to be. That could lead to some trouble. Now, by getting up in the high lane, he'll negate that a little bit. But there were some moments when they were too wide that I was scared Brad Newman wasn't going to hold on to that car.
And for all those struggles, he has only fallen right back to where he started this race at 18th. But that tells me if he gained a lot of spots and then lost a lot of spots, he may have been a little bit too aggressive off the jump and then burned up those very fresh tires and is now struggling a little bit on the backside, and would, in theory, we'd expect to see him continue to fall. And 21 of Bauer's been topside pretty much every time we've looked at him. He's following the 8 car. Joseph Galata through on the outside. They will both get around the 6 car of Clayton Hoffman. So does that 10 and Matt DiCianni. He'll go topside on the 6, make it through, and that's a handful of spots in the negative for Hoffman, who, much like Newman, gained spots early and now nearly 40 laps into this run, losing all those spots.
And that's not a good sign for any driver. 40 laps in if you're having tire problems, because we know that these drivers can go probably roughly 150 laps, if not more, on a tank of gas. Now, I do believe that drivers will probably pit for tires before they need gas, but knowing that you could go that long, you know, a 40-lap run is maybe a quarter, roughly, of what you could do here. So if you're burning up your tires that soon, you're really putting yourself at a real disservice for this race, assuming it stays green. And right now, here we are almost 10% done, Evan, and we are green.
Yeah, I didn't want to jinx it, but the last two top split races so far this week, 10 yellows on Wednesday night, 18 on Thursday night. So if I was a betting man, I'd put the over on a 12.5 just based on the law of averages. But knock on wood, so far so good at a very competitive pace and rate on cue as you teed it up and I took the bait. Caution number 1 has flown. That is Jacob Bauer in the number 21 car, or at least he was one of the drivers around. Bauer spun in the 21, and then was Newman also spun maybe after the initial yellow?
Yeah, sometimes at Bristol, there can be multiple incidents that happen just because of how fast the accordion moves forward and backward here on this track. We'll wait and see when the replay machine loads up about what exactly did happen. But we saw that 21 turned around there just out of the corner. We'll see if he got help, or we'll see if he maybe got some help or got loose or what happened to him. I'm excited to find out.
We knew he was an offensive driver. Let's take a look at the replay to see what happened to the 21 car. That's on his own, just trying to force the car to the outside. Caution's out at this point, and then there's Newman getting tagged. I think they all probably started to check up for the spin from Bauer, and then Newman gets tagged. There was contact in that one after he got hit from behind by the 19 of Weitendorf, and that's how you get two different accidents. And here come all of the race leaders. Those handfuls stinging out there on the racing surface. Not lead lap cars so far. It's 100% of the lead lap cars that are in. And even though pit lane is divided into two here at Bristol, it acts as one. So they all came down pit road that was inside of turn number 2. Went down the back straightaway. That's where all the lower qualified cars' pit stops would have been. They have to continue onto the front straightaway, and finally now they get to their boxes.
Yep, so big. Now look ahead there. There's all the cars that are pitting. Those are lap down cars. I was curious if any of them would stay out and maybe take the wave around, but only one, only Brad Newman, appears to be staying out, Evan. So he'll get a lap back, but everyone else is going to stay one lap down and pit here. I'm a little surprised. If I thought I could run 120, 130, 140 laps on a tank of gas, I might risk it and see if I can get my lap back and not have to stress about it. Because as a driver, when you are a lap down, there's inherently a stress that sits on you that is hard to explain. I'd say it's stress, and you're thinking about it all the time. Lucky dog fights. I don't want to be involved in the next wreck. How do I get back in the lead lap? I'm just surprised that no one else besides Brad Newman took that opportunity.
Everybody pretty much lockstep with each other, 4 tires and fuel throughout the field. You saw those lapped cars who did not pit. Most of them came down pit road the next time by. That's when pit road opens for all the lap down cars. So Bauer, Gitter, Pajari, and Richardson all decide to come down pit road in the end. And by pitting, they will stay one lap down. They will not regain any lead lap status per se. So no major shakeups through the pit stop strategy, and get set for restart at about 1/10 distance in this Bristol 500. Current race leader going to be James Houghton. He's led 25 laps of this race. Garrett Maines has led 23, even though Maines is 1 for 2 in his top split endeavors so far this weekend. He has led, to your point, you mentioned it earlier, over 400 laps in every single one. It did not come together Wednesday for him in the end, but he was overwhelmingly the dominant car in both of the top splits that he's participated in. Not necessarily a cut and dry case so far here tonight, because Houghton is P1, going to be the control car as we close in on the first 50 laps of this race being complete. Green flag back in the air.
My goodness, look how Garrett Maines almost got caught sleeping there, Evan. Really missed out on that restart. Houghton got a big jump here. You see it. Look at that. Already 1 or 2 car lengths there. And then you go back to P3, and caution's out again on the track.
And that's what restarts worry you, is that you're going to get the cautions breed cautions, and that one was very fast, and I believe was the number 28 machine of Nicholas Patovich. It was not much of an accident, but it was enough to trigger the yellow flag. There's contact on the inside from the 21. That's, for all intents and purposes, a save. Yes, the car did get the back end into the outside wall, but that triggers a automatic caution flag from the sim. Those who participate in these events, Derek, very familiar with that, but maybe for those who aren't, all official iRacing events have automated caution flags and automated race controls, so there is no judgment call. The sim says it is or is not one, and maybe a bit of a quick trigger on the decision, but again, that's all out of somebody's hands. It's all in the sim. There's no judgment involved in that one, and unfortunately, it'll slow things back down.
It will slow things back down. It will now, I believe, put the 4 car of Patrick Gitter back on the lead lap with the lucky dog. So one of those lap down cars will benefit from this yellow. But look how fast that happened, Evan. The 21 got there. Didn't mean to hit anyone. Didn't mean to tap the rear bumper. But sometimes just a difference of braking points can cause a moment like that. Well, now Garrett Maines gets to try it again, Evan, and there's your lucky dog going on the outside, I do believe, right there at the top of your screen. But now Maines gets to try it again, and I'm curious if he has a better strategy or just a better start, because last time he really kind of got left behind on that restart. But then again, I always say to you, Evan, starting on the outside on the front row in iRacing is the hardest thing to do.
And I think for the 2 car here, I think he'll take that last restart. Obviously, if Garrett Maines could somehow stay alongside Houghton, that would be huge, because we've been harping all night about the outside's the preferred lane, right? So you might think, well, why doesn't the 14 go up there? Doesn't really have the opportunity, I don't think, but the way that the restart procedures are in these official races with the choose option, he's on the bottom. So if the 2 could somehow stay up there, it could be a one-way ticket to fighting for the race lead. But again, I don't think that last restart was that bad for him, because Borborema didn't get a better start than him, right? If Borborema from third gets up there and then he starts getting some challenges for second, okay, maybe. But remember, even a bad restart on the outside, you're still up top. I mean, Borborema would have to basically clear you getting into turn number 1 to lose that spot. So I think, again, as long as he doesn't completely botch it, Garrett Maines is looking at an at-worst maintaining P2. And there are lots of other racetracks where starting on the outside of the front row does not guarantee you a P2. It can be 3rd, 4th, or 5th routinely. So could be worse, I think, for the 2 car.
Oh, 100% agree. It could have been worse, but it's sort of interesting to see how Garrett has kind of missed that start there. But, we talk all the time about how being on the outside, you're trying to watch the car next to you. You're trying to watch the instructions from the iRacing race control. You're trying to pay attention, not speed. That's a thing that's come in the past year or so, is that now there's a speed limit when you're pacing. You have to stay in to make sure you don't get a black flag. So I really do believe, I'm of the opinion as a driver, Evan, I would rather start P3 than P2. I think starting P3 is immensely easier than starting P2.
We'll see how this shakes out. Lights out on top of the pace car. So after going nearly 45 laps without a yellow, we've had 2 quick cautions back to back in the last 10 laps. Houghton logging laps, leading up at the front of the field, looks for another good restart with 56 laps behind us. Green flag in the air. It's a good jump for him. No contest from Garrett Maines, but he is clear for the number 2 spot. They'll be side by side for 3rd.
There's that 2x2 battle you see right there, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th right there side by side. And if they stay that way, that will be great news for Maines, but they don't. That car there of Roman gets up clear, and now that line up top is already forming, Evan. You got a little bit of a choo-choo train or a bus line, or whatever you want to call it, forming in the top lane of this track.
Everybody has figured out quite quickly where you want to be, and everybody fighting to get to the outside of the racetrack in their respective battles. That includes the 1 car back here in traffic, Jacob Schneider, who has been picking his way through the field after starting in 13th position. He's up to 7th, maybe more, as he gets a nose in front of J.R. Borborema. He'll clear him on the outside in the Ryco machine.
Oh, and what happened to Bro Barim right there is he got in the wrong lane. He got in the bottom lane of this track, and everyone went by. The way I explain that to non-racing fans, how it feels in the car, Evan, it's like when you go to a restaurant, you're being nice, and you hold the door open for the first person, and you let one person in. Next thing you know, like 5 people have walked in. You can't find anyone else to take the door. Like, you're just kind of standing there holding it like you work there. That's kind of what Bro Barema just felt like. He just could not find a way out of letting those people by.
Top side of the racetrack there, that's the 15 car at Graham Bolin. I mentioned that Schneider's been picking through the field. What Bolin and Diallo are doing is incredible. They're lined up nose to tail on the outside. Bolin is up 23 positions. Diallo, 25 positions gained. These two have been on a tear after not taking a time at qualifying and starting way back in the 30s.
Yeah, great run by Bolin. You see in the bottom of your screen, now the top in that yellow, black, and purple machine right there. Having a great run, keeping cars behind him. And you're right, up so many spots. Graham, of course, one of the best, one of the NASCAR Coca-Cola Series drivers, so knows what he's doing around here. And sometimes when you come to these races, Evan, drivers who are, you know, top tier sort of find their way to the front. And my goodness, there's Bro Barima stuck again.
Yeah, bottom stuck. I mean, that 9 car is going to get by him right here. It's going to be another spot lost on this run alone. And Bro Barima, in the blink of an eye, is down to P10. He aggressively cuts up to the outside to get ahead of Joseph Galata. He does not want another car to get to the outside of him. Look at the 8 car searching, trying to find a gap up top. And maybe JR's line is a little bit more middle of the road, so he has to change his entry to seal off the outside. It's going to feel a little bit weird for him. Again, the bottom's open. The 8 car can go down there all he wants, but even if Bro Barima just runs okay laps, he should be able to defend this on the outside. He's a little bit up on the back bumper of the 9, a lateral up top, so we'll see if that becomes a factor at all. But again, Bro Barima topside, that's where he needs to be if he wants to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really about where a driver's comfortable on the track. Sometimes that matters more to a driver, maybe than what is quote-unquote faster. And as I watch JR up here on the top lane, he doesn't look fully comfortable, Evan. He looks like he's kind of up against the wall or right next to it and kind of maybe tapping it, maybe not. So maybe he's going to go back down to the bottom where he feels more comfortable, as if he won't put damage on this car. And that may matter to him more right now than, you know, what is quote-unquote faster. That's a concern for later in this race.
And we continue to watch as this race carries on to see if that will change at all. It started to, but we got to the end of the 250 lap race on Monday here on RaceSpotTV in the RSR Cup Series. Double the distance, I think, when we get to 3,400, and with a field double the size, maybe even sooner, we will see the bottom start to stand a little bit more of a fighting chance. But the only thing that can turn that on is time and laps. You can't will it into existence. You just got to ride and wait till we get to that point in this race. So Bro Barima doing a good job on the outside of making some passes back now around Vroman, and again defending the number 10 spot as he'll get back down in single file and maybe try to stretch our legs and look for another bit of a green flag sprint. Again, yes, this is a very long race at 500 laps. But if it goes green, you can get a good chunks of these races knocked out here and there with a couple of green flag runs. So what these drivers are hoping for, build a little bit of a rhythm, learn what your car's going to do as it goes through a full fuel run, where the tires fall off. Did you push a little bit too much early? Did you save a little bit too much? Can you be more aggressive? These are only things that drivers will learn by getting some track time. Now, to the point of the likes of some of the drivers who have competed in these other races already this week, Garrett Maines, I think notably, right, with a win already, they've already got all that R&D out of the way. So they're going to be locked in and ready to pounce. And Maines has made his way all the way up to P2. Wouldn't be shocked if that's a battle for the race win again at some point after he is settled into the number 2 spot. He's staying competitive. Bowl in a top 5 car for the first time. How does he have that pace after driving through the field? So quite a few interesting storylines here inside of the top 10 as you go on board with Paul Bergoli, P6.
Yeah, Paul in that 17 machine, a Florida native here, is doing a great job trying to get up under Graham Bolin, but we know that's probably not going to work as well as he wants it to. But you're right, one of the innovations in the past year or so has been the implementation of dynamic track features from iRacing. And one of those is that we can now rubber in some lines, so to speak. We can really, I don't want to say, as you said, you can't will it into existence. It has to happen. But by driving that bottom lane with this many cars, I would think by the end of this race, that bottom lane may not be perfect, but be more prevalent than it was at the start of this race. Now, other factors could also be the weather. This race will likely get cooler on track temp as this race goes on, and that will lead to more grip in any lane on the track.
And track temp already pretty cool at 76 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 6 degrees warmer than the outside temperature is. That outside temp forecasted to drop maybe as low as 68 before this race is done in sim time. So you could be looking at, again, maybe 2 degrees of temperature drop. That could accelerate with the lack of heating from the sun. It could also go slower as these cars put heat into the racetrack when you've got 30-something of them driving around at top speed. So all those different factors in this new modern version of iRacing's dynamic track system going to be playing into effect, and these drivers going to have to anticipate and adapt when those changes eventually come. That's Oscar Enrique back at the number 19 spot. He's around the 32 of Vincent Crowe in that battle for position. Oscar's made up a handful of spots early in this race, and again, we talk about those numbers are based on iRating. So you would think a number 31 of Enriquez or a 32 of Crow Derek are the lower ranked drivers. That's true, but the lowest drivers in the top split race are still the top 35 drivers running this race of the several hundred that are participating in splits tonight.
Yeah, it's sort of almost what we call a first world problem, if you will. I saw a car get sort of wiggly loose up there in the front of that camera shot, that black and I don't want to call it mint green car, but got it all gathered up here. But you're right, even if you're the bottom quote unquote car in top split, you're still doing better iRating than about 8 other splits of races that are going on simultaneously on the iRacing service. So here's a car right there that got the lucky dog before. That's Patrick Gitter in that number 4 machine, doing a great job here, trying to race on the bottom and sort of making progress, Evan. I'm happy to see that bottom lane working a little bit here. And then they're coming back together on the back straights. And Gitter is trying everything he can to make that work and to not get passed by all these cars.
It's tricky as these drivers now 40-something laps removed from the first yellow of the night in which they came down and got tires. So these tires going to be at their lowest performance as they've been basically all night long, because this run equaling that long green flag stretch we had to open the race. So maybe some uncharted territory for some of these drivers as we get deeper and deeper into the run. Gitter leaving the top side open, but he's got a couple of car lengths of an advantage, but then right there, but he goes into the corner and the 24 and the 31 are closer to him. He stays high. So Gitter's doing lots of watching in the rear view mirror, and he's enjoying this battle that's going on behind him because it's allowing him to pull away the 31 of Enriquez, the 24 of Fleckenstein on the bottom, door to door in an ongoing battle for P20, and it's allowing that 4 to scoot on away.
Man, that 31 just clobbered the wall right there, Evan. He is having a bit of a hard time in that top lane as Fleckenstein almost got to the back of him there, but that 31 clobbered that wall. Now, the good news for these drivers, Evan, while you don't want to get damage at any racetrack, is, hey, we're not at Talladega, we're not at Daytona, we're not, even at Indianapolis, for example, where aerodynamics are king. I've seen many a driver win this race with a car that looks like it has no business on the track.
What we always hear is we go 3 wide in the middle of that, the number 25 car getting through Jacob Klein. That is not a moment that you see often here at Bristol. 3 wide again, this time in the middle. Was that the 16 car? A Jacob Schneider in the center. So couple of moments of very aggressive three-wide racing in the mid-20s here. And if you feel like you've got a better race car, you have to get going, because the race leader is only about a straightaway behind where this battle is right now, and will soon be putting you a lap down. And once you get several laps down in a long race like this, it's going to be hard, if not impossible, to dig yourself out.
Oh, this is, I think, what streamer Matt Malone would call a gaggle, Evan Basoko. This is a gaggle of cars right here, all racing together. That's Maggie McGuire back there in that pink car in the back of that field, kind of riding in the tail of this line, just trying to stay, as you said, ahead of the leader. But as you see, this is how crazy Bristol is and how intense. Even battles back here at the quote-unquote back of the lead lap, it is still just door-to-door, bumper-to-bumper, fender-to-fender. And to say what, while the track may be cooling off, oh, hold on, we got a slow car. That was kind of curious, but he got rolling again. I was going to say, as the temperatures are cooling off on the track, Evan, it's possible the temperatures inside the driver's helmet is heating up.
Every time that a lap passes, somebody blocks you, you get the wall, whatever it may be, you're going to get a little bit more annoyed, and your fuse is going to get shorter and shorter as this race progresses. Keeping an eye on those temperatures, by the way. Track temp has actually gone up a couple of degrees in the last few laps, up to 81. So that heat in the racetrack, as you see, the slow car was Crow. Nice save, kept it going in a yellow. All of these cars putting down rubber has actually been increasing the track temperature. That will decrease overall grip. That'll be something that'll be fun to watch over the next few hours.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, see how that progresses. Here's the 11 car on the back of Graham Bolin. We saw Bolin get loose. There's Omar Diallo. Omar, of course, has made an attempt, Evan, through Road to Pro and Contender Series to make it into the Coke Series. So very skilled driver in his own right. And here's the 7 machine. That's Cabe McClinney, who's trying now to, in that very bright yellow, like almost like, not Kodak yellow. I don't know if you have a better reference than that. Highlighter yellow.
It's giving lemonade yellow. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, there you go.
It's giving yellow, yellow lemonade style color as he sits in that number 4 spot. And up front, you saw the quick peek there. Garrett Maines has indeed passed James Houghton back for the race lead. So Houghton's led for the better part of the last 50 laps or so. Maines in control for the first time since the restart.
And you see that 32 car kind of slowing up, the 12 on the outside. This is one of the few times when Paul Pergoldi could actually probably make a move on the inside and be successful. They were 4 wide, Evan, but the car up in the wall.
More 3 wide, pinched in the middle. Is that gonna work? It looks like they'll sneak away with another one, but these drivers are doing everything they can to keep things dicey. Now the 5 car, a Holzer, center of it all. He's several laps down. He's minus 40. Back out there on some fresher tires, trying to get by these faster cars. But we saw that moment with Crow a few laps ago, Watson. I'm seeing those moves with everybody all over the field. The pink car, Maggie McGuire nearly binned it from 31st. I mean, there are cars slipping and sliding all over this racetrack, and those are scary hours if you're the race leader, because it could happen right in front of you.
But yeah, it can happen right in front of you, or the wreck could work its way backwards to you. It's just very, very fast here at Bristol, how a wreck forms and how it blocks the track. So you're always hoping that never happens. Here's Graham Bolin trying his best to hold off the 8 machine here in Joseph Galata, and Bolin right in that top lane. And Graham is doing a pretty stellar job at really running that top lane, Evan, and not scrubbing that wall. That's the challenge of running Bristol in the top lane, or any track of that nature of this type, is, man, they're 3 wide again, is not hitting that wall, and that's much easier than it sounds.
I mean, this racetrack is hard enough for some to get around on your own, let alone in a 3 wide battle. And this battle for position is for P6 on back. Bolin made a big charge through the field. At one point was leading Diallo through the field, but a few laps ago, Diallo got ahead of him and passed him. Omar's in 11th. Graham was in 5th. Now it seems like maybe the 15 cooked the tires, being aggressive early in the run because he fell down to P6 after getting passed by Gabe McClenny and is kind of parking the bus, if you will, on the outside there, Derek, and forcing all these cars to try to pass him down low. Borborema is doing not a half bad job at trying to get by on the bottom, but this 15 car struggling later in this run.
Sort of ironic, isn't it, to see Borborema now finally making that bottom lane work, maybe against Grant Bolin, after the challenges he had on this restart where he went from 3rd to about 10th or 11th position here. But Borborema's got cars behind him to make the pass as well. So just a little bit of a clog right here. They'll work it out eventually somehow. But Grant Bolin way up top there, all out of their gas pedal. And that's going to be passed 1, 2, 3 times here on lap 122.
Nearly 80 laps since these cars last pitted. It is no shock that we're starting to see some of these drivers struggle. Bolin falls all the way to P9 after Borborema, Vroman, and Galata were able to pass him. And it's the first time tonight where there's been a negative point in this race for him. Back here at 11th, more side-by-side action. This time it's Paul Brigoli who's parking the bus on the outside of the racetrack, and Ronald Cross trying to pass on the inside. He has. So 100+ laps into this race. Yes, it is aided by the fact that the cars up top are very visibly struggling, Derek, but we are seeing the inside line start to become more and more of an option. There are 3 more passes right there from the inside.
Yeah, well, it looks like as these drivers are starting to have tire problems or tire wear problems, they are running the top and just sort of lifting and letting people by. But you're right, we're seeing it more and more prevalent as each lap goes on here. Riding on board with Nicholas Vroman in the 3. And he thought about 3 wide, said, I'll wait. I don't want to be in the middle of that. And I don't blame him. If I could list for you the tracks I'd want to be 3 wide at, Bristol would probably be towards the bottom. If not, maybe towards the bottom. I have 1 or 2 below it, but not that many.
Yeah, maybe the, Darlington,
Martinsville
Hills of the world would be kind of the only ones in that same ballpark. But yeah, this place is tight. And look at Borborema. That is Vroman absolutely plastered on his back bumper, trying to make a move and, being somewhat patient again. Could he force the issue there? Absolutely. Does he go for it? Not quite yet. So some smart and calculated driving out of the Nicholas Vroman camp is he sits. Oh, look at the 12 car there. Borborema got out of shape. He saved it. Now a caution elsewhere on the speedway. It is Nathan Biggert for yellow flag number 3.
That was a kind of a coincidental moment right there. I thought for sure when I heard cautions out, it was going to be for that 12 car just because of how we saw him fly off of the camera shot. But no, look at this here. Biggert just got on the front, or excuse me, on the back straight, and could not hold the car and came back up in those corners. And man, that is exceptional. No one hit him, Evan Pasoko. How does that happen?
It was not exceptional on behalf of Nathan Biggert, who, to your point, tried to drive that race car, but drove it all the way back to the outside wall. And I have seen so many wrecks where that takes out a half a dozen. I do not know how they avoided that one. Brad Newman probably had the scariest view of it all as that car was wrecking and then came up the hill directly in front of him, and somehow it is only Biggert's machine involved. As we have cars on pit road, Garrett Maines will pit as the race leader, qualified in this race in first, so he has to go all the way down pit road to that very last pit stall. For those drivers who qualified in the back half of the field, they will find their stalls on the back straightaway where they enter pit road, but they will also have to drive around the inside of turns 3 and 4, down that second pit lane on the front stretch at pit road speed before they get out. So there is no advantage to being on the back straightaway or the front straightaway. And with a sprint that was about as long as the first one, expecting 4 tires at fuel again for everybody.
And this is one of those things, Evan, I always joke, as a broadcaster, that feature is amazing. The fact they all come in and go out the same way is so much better for us because there's no more calculating the different pit roads and who entered, who exited. It's just all one race there together. But you're right, there's really no favored pit stalls on this track now because of the way that works. So now we're under cautioning and everyone's coming off a pit road. Gonna wait and see if anyone takes the wave around, and only a few more laps away from going green once again.
There's a look at some front end damage. I think that's the front of the 5 of James Holzer as we look off of the back of the pace car. Holzer 38 laps down. He was 40 laps down, so chipping away. I don't think there's a realistic scenario in which he actually gets back to the lead lap in this one, but trucking along with some right front damage on that car. If there is a place that you can get away with some damage, it would be here in Thunder Valley. We've seen quite some historic moments through NASCAR's history of beat up cars taking wins or having good finishes here at Bristol. Again, you can't do any damage underneath that bodywork. That'll seriously take you out of it, but a little bit of cosmetic damage never hurt. Holzer will take the wave by. He will get out of the way of the race leaders and to catch back up.
So now that'll put Garrett Maines right here behind the pace car on the inside. I would imagine great news for him. Now we'll see how the 14 does on the outside. We've watched this battle the opposite way for the past 2 restarts, and the car on the inside has really gotten a decent jump both times. So this top 5 is Maines, Houghton, Schneider, Vroman, and McClinney as we're about ready to go green again.
And it'll be a role reversal on the front row this time with Maines as the control car. He'll be on the inside. And James Houghton going to have to make something work up top. 135 laps in the books. Green flag back in the air. 3 wide with a checkup already. That is Graham Bolin. 3 wide in turn 1 makes the pass on Galata.
Wow, they worked that out. That's a great job right there by Graham Bolin and everyone else involved. I think I saw the 8 car was back there and another machine on the bottom that they grabbed the number of. But look at this, Evan, right here, sort of nose to tail or side by side. Ryko. Those machines are now, I think, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Houghton, Vroman, and Schneider wanting to see if they can win this race.
And again, these cars are going to be sporty off the jump. We saw the likes of Bolin struggle a little bit more on the long run. Does that tamper the 15's aggression early? The restart would indicate no, but we'll see. Omar Diallo, in the meantime, the 11 car did really good long in the run. So he knows, I think, what to do to keep this pace, and he's trying to follow the 7 McClinney through. Can the 12 of Borborema get in front? He cannot. JR tried to get the 12 car up in front of the 11 of Diallo, couldn't do it. And Omar's going to make this pass on the outside. Yes, he does, off of 4.
Great pass by Omar there. And, man, again, JR stuck on the bottom. It's a story we're telling all night long, Evan, and I hope eventually either the bottom works out for him or he moves up and defends more of his positions. Look at this, by the way, the international flair to these special events. JR's from Brazil. So it is, different time zones and international flair to these events. It's not all quote-unquote American drivers. We see drivers from all around the world participating in the NASCAR races here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, mentioned earlier, we got 3 international drivers. Of course, JR from Brazil. I had talked a little bit about Brad Newman earlier from the Australian, New Zealand region. And then, of course, we've talked plenty about James Houghton in the number 2 spot, the Canadian, the 3rd of those non-American drivers in this field of 34. A battle up front still ongoing, but pretty calm for Bristol's sake, that is, as things continue on. There's that 3 car, Nick Vroman in the number 3 spot. He's trying to get up and into this conversation. I think this is the highest we've seen Vroman yet tonight in this race.
Yeah, I believe so as well. So Vroman in one of those Ryko machines. And it's worth mentioning, by the way, Evan, this is an open setup race. These drivers do get to come in here and load setups they have built for this race. So everyone's going to drive maybe a little different depending upon what setups you build for yourself or maybe what team is helping you build setups. So that can create a little bit of disparity amongst these cars just to start. Someone may have a better setup or maybe a setup that fits them better or doesn't suit them as well as it does a teammate, and that can matter here. But watch this 8 machine here. The New York native of Joseph Galata doing a great job here. Staying on the back end of that Ryko machine here. It's Golada right now is racing for P8. And that is Jacob Schneider in front of it. Now, Evan, did I see this earlier, by the way? Do we have Jacob C. Schneider and Jacob Schneider in the race? I don't know that they're related, but it definitely stuck out to me.
We had Jacob C. Schneider. We have a Jacob Schneider. They are from different clubs. That doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't related. C. Schneider from Carolina. No abbreviation for the middle name Schneider from the Florida club. But there are 4 Jacobs total in this race. 21 of Jacob Brower. You got the 1 of Jacob C. Schneider, the 25 of Jacob Klein, and the 16 of Jacob Schneider. So there's a whole lot of Schneiders and Jacobs. You got Brower, you got Schneider times 2, you got Klein. There's 3 or 2 Jameses with a Holzer and a Houghton in there. So there is a high percentage of J names in the field.
So you got to think that makes what, like a 7.25% chance that a Jacob wins this race. So that probably doesn't pay well. If there was like Vegas odds on a Jacob winning the Bristol 500 top split tonight, probably not going to pay well just because of how many of them there are here. But look at that. That's that 22 machine again. That's Brad Newman, the Australian, in this race and right here battling now here in this spot. And I looked it up, Evan, depending upon what part of Australia he's in, it's roughly about noon that time in Australia. So even though he is an international flair, luckily for him, this works out. You and I have both seen drivers who've gotten up at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning to do these events. But luckily for Mr. Newman, he gets to kind of sleep in.
Yeah, it's almost so late in North America that it's good for somebody in that part of the world, right? South America, North America, and then so far east or west, I guess, depending on which direction you want to look across the globe, that it's kind of midday there for Newman, that it's not as bad. Likely won't be seeing any Europeans or anybody from the African region in a race here tonight. Asia maybe, but again, it's still early in the morning there. They would be more likely to be competing in, say, a 5 a.m. split tomorrow morning, Eastern time, right? That would put you a little bit more midday in the Central European region, and would see a lot more drivers from that part of the world. So there are plenty of races, again, all week long. Top split with the, of course, open race here tonight. Drivers able to modify their setups. The very most competitive session of the weekend could very well be this one, but there's other open sessions, there's other fixed sessions. Those fixed races, of course, meaning drivers cannot modify the setups on those cars. Those are going to be going on all weekend long. So I encourage you, if you're enjoying being here with us on tonight's broadcast and you've got a license that allows you to compete on your iRacing account, get out there and give it a try this week.
Yeah, so you need a C-Class oval license to compete. There are 3 more fixed sessions, 5 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning, noon Eastern on Saturday, and we wrap it up Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. 1 more open, Evan, is at 10 a.m. Eastern time Sunday morning. So, as you said, plenty of more opportunities. All you need is a C-Class license on the oval side, and to own, of course, one of the next-gen cars in the track. And you can be out here trying to win this 500 lap race. And let me tell you, as someone who's won a special event, it wasn't here, but when you do it, there's a sigh of relief when that race is over and you know that you have accomplished something not many people get to do.
And if you're a race fan, those times work out almost perfect, right? The NASCAR Cup Series is racing here at Bristol tomorrow night. Not a problem at all, because the next race tomorrow is at 5 a.m. on Saturday Eastern time, and then noon. So you can race both of those and still watch the NASCAR Cup Series race the following night. Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern or so is when the F1 race is. That'll wrap up just before 10 a.m. Eastern. That's when our next open session race is. 10 a.m. Eastern, and then again 9 o'clock Sunday night. So if you're a race fan and maybe did not participate in this one because NASCAR Xfinity Series racing was going on at Bristol, or you're at the track somewhere, don't worry. Those time slots just so conveniently line up this weekend to not interfere with a handful of the major races that are going on all around the world. There's a dizzying look from high above this Bristol Motor Speedway. This is the group just behind your race leader, Garrett Maines. He's been steady since bringing us back to the green flag, and just a lap ago, passed James Houghton for the most laps led in this race at 85. But Garrett Maines is dealing with traffic. Look at this, 3 wide, and the 14 car, Houghton, gonna get picked on the inside, and Nick Vroman, 3 wide with the lapped car to the outside of him, makes a pass for P2, and Omar Diallo also gonna best Houghton. He'll go through to 3rd, and that'll drop James down to P4.
Yeah, that was Cody Richardson in the 30 that they lapped there. He's already a couple laps down, so this will be one more. But props to Cody. He got up there on the top of the track, held it up there, stayed out of the way as much as humanly possible, and let those drivers by. That is, if I can create like a textbook or like a YouTube video, or I guess nowadays the kids use TikTok, of what a lapped car should do, Evan, that right there would be my footage. Be predictable, stick to the top of the track, don't get in the way, and let the drivers by. I've never made a TikTok, by the way. I just want to tell you that.
I don't have the app, so I'm an Instagram Reels person, which I'm told makes me old when I refer to Reels. I'm told people just re-upload TikToks to there, but...
the days on MySpace.
See, I missed that, though. I was MSN Messenger type, and I talk about, we were talking pre-broadcast about feeling old, and a lot of the top drivers in races nowadays, top split like this, Coke Series drivers, birthdays in the 2000s. It's tough, man. Feels like that. But it is also so great that this platform in iRacing has been built up to the point where when these kids were at that kind of early teens age, late teens, starting to get involved in a more serious sim racing, and maybe making that progression from the console side of things, that events like this, series like the Coke Series, all the other major things that happen across the sim have been established, especially from 2020 on, post-pandemic. iRacing continues to be such a global stage for drivers from all over the world, for racing types, from oval to road course racing to off-road and basically everything in between, that it gives a lot of these young drivers opportunities to thrive.
And on the opposite end of that, as much as it thrives for the younger drivers like a Garrett Maines or a Graham Bolin, you and I are both aware of many older drivers who are successful on this simulator as well. It's not just a young kid's game. There are drivers of every age, of every location or origin or club, whatever you want to call it. This is such a diverse group on iRacing of success. We've both seen people in their teens be successful. We've seen people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s be successful. So an age is not a factor. It's part of why I love about iRacing. I feel like when I play some games out there in the market, Evan, if I'm like over the age of like whatever, I'm down. I'm behind in skill, but not so much in iRacing. There's another car up in the wall again, but holds on to it.
Is starting to see these cars now 50 laps into this run struggle with some of those handling issues. The last time we saw them really start to get out of control was about 80 laps into a run, is when we seemed to hit a cliff and we started seeing cars getting sideways and getting out of control. You can get a little bit of the fence here at Bristol. I actually find it funny. Obviously, the bottom is more of an option here than it is at Darlington. At Darlington, it's essentially that high line or bust, but for all the talk that the track too tough to tame gets with the Darlington stripe, nobody really refers to how much contact you get here in the wall at Bristol, but it happens just as frequently, I'd argue.
The interesting about Bristol that I think you and I talked about on Monday night is this track is different. I think every time we race here, like as the next-gen cars have progressed in iRacing, as Bristol has progressed, as dynamic track progresses, as setups change, which is probably a bigger factor, I feel like every time we race here, the line changes a little bit. There are some tracks, as you said, like Darlington, where we know you're going to go there, you're going to run the top. There are some tracks that happens. I think every time we come to Bristol, Evan, in the iRacing service, I feel like the line has moved. It used to be bottom, now it's top. There's been a couple years where maybe it didn't matter as much which line it was. I love this track because I never quite know, loading into it, what I'm up against.
And that is part of the continuing evolution of iRacing as a service, of these next-gen cars, of this speedway, of the dynamic tracks as you reference. And that's why it's different every time, just like in real life, how the track conditions will change with years on the concrete or on the asphalt, and the cars will have rules packages and aero packages adjusted. iRacing is not the same sim that it was a year ago, 2 years ago, and it will not be the same sim that it is today in 1 year or 2 years from now. That, I think, the biggest thing that separates it from other console titles in the racing space is it is not a static product, and events like this Bristol 500 will be used as kind of litmus tests and benchmark moments in the Cup Series cars, specifically referring to this event, but it rings true for all the other great events that are on that iRacing special events calendar. Almost at the lap number 200 marker in this 500 lap race, and that means getting closer and closer to getting halfway home, where we will stop counting up and slowly start to count our way down. But to put my Larry Mack hat on for a moment, the trends would suggest probably a yellow flag before we get to that point. These cars, at least tonight so far, have shown us they're probably going to get too out of control to get all the way through a full fuel/tire run and get us to green flag pit stops. They seem to be wrecking out of control before they get that deep. Who knows what may happen, but that's what I've learned in the first 190.
Yeah, that's very true. What's happening is drivers are wearing those tires off, and I think they're getting a little aggressive on the gas pedal out of the corners, and then that can happen here at Bristol pretty easily. It's not talked about enough, and you get on the gas pedal too soon, and that car just wobbles like it did to the 11 right there, and then you get loose on your own, or maybe you get a tap like the 11 just did, and you go, so Omar, great job holding on to it. Had a little comment to say in voice chat, nothing major, and just now it's going to move on and try his best to forget that it happened.
You got to have a short memory to an extent. What's funny is we always talk about drivers having long memories. When it comes to something that may shake your confidence, you really have to have a short memory to just keep on going. That 32 had a real sketchy twitch in front of these leaders. That's Vincent Crowe, who's right now holding up the 11 and the 14. 3 wide. Here we go as Graham Bolin goes to the inside. Oh, there's going to be contact there. They nearly wreck as they head off and down the front stretch. And now it's Houghton back to the middle. Joseph Crowe is backing them all up. It's Vincent Crowe there. And after all of that, Bolin's through. He'll take a shot now. Wrecking behind. It couldn't continue forever. And another caution. That one involves the 23.
And likely that wreck you saw there is probably due to the accordion of what was happening with Bolin and Houghton and others. It's all connected, even though there's not contact all the way back. Here it is again. Watch this. The back of your screen. Oh, no, it's not really connected. That car just got loose. Great call by Evan Pasoko, where that 12 car just couldn't hold on to it.
It was Borborema, who has looked pretty solid tonight and has been one of the fastest cars in this race. To your point, just got loose. I mean, that's all it takes. He did a good job to catch the race car. The problem is when you're side by side, that margin to catch the car, 0. And it put him down into the right rear of Nathan Biggert, who got turned around. Biggert wasn't even a 4-position car. That car was laps down, but we mentioned off the top, lap traffic was going to be a big story in this race. It was a big story in not only that accident, but that battle that we were watching, because it was getting physical. Bolin tried to go all the way to third. Houghton gave him a shot. It's going to be fun as those two may line up on the front row. And Bolin, because he started this race in 30th, he's going to be pitting way earlier than these cars here. He's already putting the left side tires on his car. He's already out of his box, but it's on the back straightaway. He's going to come all the way around and catch up to these three.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see how everyone cycles out. And a very slow pit road space, or pit road speed here, Evan. Sorry to get the wrong word in there. 35 miles an hour is what they crawl around here as. That means if you even like sniff the gas pedal in these cars, you can go faster than 35. It's really almost hard to not speed here.
as they race off of pit road. That pit road speed keeps them kind of shackled with how slow it is at just 35 miles an hour. It's half of what it is at some other ovals. It is still indeed the 2-car off first. They were side by side for second best off of pit road. Houghton does edge out in front of the number 3 car, Nicholas Vroman, so there will be no major changes inside of your top 4. You see a whole bunch of cars out in front of the leader. That'll be the aforementioned Vincent Crowe, Jacob Klein, and Kagan Fleckenstein, who are going to stay out. They will receive a wave around and will all go from, in Fleckenstein's case, from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. In Klein's case, a little bit less impactful. He'll go from 22 laps down to 21.
Yeah, and that's only impactful. Remember, this is a year-long season of NIS Open. So these drivers are still racing for points. They're racing for iRating. It's not just about this one event, such as it may be in other special events. So they're still inclined to get every spot they can.
These caution flags, periods, I should say, are also not very long. Those wave rounds going to happen, and we're going to go right back at it. And the restart will come with 45 laps to go until we are halfway through a marathon long night here in Thunder Valley. And as always, happy that you're with us for these iRacing special events on iRacing and RaceSpotTV. Maines again in control from the front row. He has started to take this race over after Houghton led nearly 80 of the first 100. Can Maines check out again? It's a slow roll through the restart zone. The 2's out in front. Look at Vroman on the inside. He'll leapfrog. He goes third to second.
Great start here. Look at the 11 of Omar. Tried his best to really to crush that bottom. Remember, everyone's got new tires. Everyone has more confidence. Everyone has a little bit more speed and grip than they did before. So they're going to push hard right here. But Omar is one of the few cars ripping that bottom lane, trying to make this work.
Doing everything he can as those top 4 get single file. Top 5 now. Bolin is clear. In that number 5 position, the fighting is for 6th odd back, but a couple of Ryco cars in 2nd and 3rd position. You wonder, teammates there surprised that Vroman would jump a teammate and gain the spot. If it was not by design, I would not think it was, considering Houghton has led 83 laps on the night, but those team cars may affect how they opt to race each other.
But it may not. There's a lot of teams in iRacing who say, hey, listen, we're a team, we're racing together, but go do what you can do. You know, this isn't, I don't want to call anyone out, but this isn't F1, right? This is not, there's no team orders here about what order you pit, or who pits when, or who passes who. Oh my goodness, there's a car in the wall up there right in front of Omar. That, I believe, was Jacob Snyder, and Omar's around. Caution again.
Spinner, it is Omar Diallo. The car is rolling again fast, but the caution flag is already out after he made contact with the 1 of Jacob Schneider and went around. I think the 33 was the other car involved. Let's take a look. I mean, huge sliding block. Omar did not appreciate it, went in to deliver a message, and just drove it in too deep, spun himself out, and then it was the 33 car, a Ronald Cross, who had nowhere to go. That's the damage that would be concerning for the 11. Diallo's car currently stationary on pit road at the entrance, I should say, to pit road, and now he will take a tow. So I think Diallo has some serious damage, and again, he had climbed his way from 34th on the grid into a top 5 spot. Even if there was no damage on that car, Derek, going to the tail end of the field would be such a setback. I think this will take Diallo out of the conversation for winning this Bristol 500.
Well, and especially the fact that he opted to tow that car back around means that here at Bristol, that you tow slower under caution by default. So he'll go multiple laps down probably before the car technically hits pit road. But it's interesting, Evan, I made the comment earlier that temperatures were going to rise inside the driver's helmet. I feel like that's the second shot we've seen taken here in the past, what, 15, 20 laps or so, because there was that shot that happened to Graham Bolin right before that last yellow as well. So it looks like maybe we're running out of patience here on lap 214.
Some drivers sharing their opinions on the most recent accident in the driver chat. That's one of my favorite things about really any race on the service. You do get a little bit less of it, I suppose, if you're in a Coke Series race or, you know, a dedicated series or world championship, because oftentimes those teams compete in that on a week-to-week basis. They'll have Discord channels or TeamSpeak servers or whatnot where they'll do their internal communication. But in a race like this, where you just kind of run what you show up with, I think it's fun to listen to the channel, because as drivers talk to each other, we just get to hear it all. And unless you're, you know, private messaging somebody in the race, Derek, everybody else gets to hear it as well.
That's both the positive and the negative, right? It's the positive of it can be entertaining. It's the negative of, oh my gosh, like we're arguing still, can be the comments sometimes, because you're right, those can go on forever. And that's one of the biggest differences I think that happens, of course, you know, between the sim and real life, is that voice chat channel that stays live. By the way, you talked about feeling old and sounding old. Did you just say TeamSpeak server?
I did say that I would date myself a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it still exists, so someone's got to be using it.
Was it like, I'm sorry, was like Ventrilo or Mumble not available in the back of your brain somewhere? Like,
we were doing these broadcasts on TeamSpeak not that long ago, in a not too distant past.
Fair enough.
User has joined your channel. Lights out on top of the pace car. Let's do it again. And what can Houghton do? Does he get some payback here? Because Vroman went third to second from the inside of row 2. Can the 14 seek his revenge? No, he can't. Maines clear for the lead. Vroman comfortably defends second. Can Houghton clear? Bolin on the inside for third. He does! What a slide job!
I think that may have been a little intentional by Houghton. Remember, they had that contact right before that yellow, I guess now 2 yellows ago, it came out, and I think Houghton sort of telling Bolin, I wasn't really happy with the bullying you were doing, or the bullying that I perceived you were doing. And so he's just trying to make a point. It'll calm down. He's not going to risk the race car, but those are the ways as drivers we find a way to send a message. Just very subtle moves. And that's our way of saying, hey, knock that off. I don't appreciate it.
And now to the outside of the 3 car goes Bolin. He looks to take third back as Houghton is on the charge for the race lead. Bolin clear of Nicholas Vroman, the 22. Brad Newman, haven't talked about him in a little while. He's also clear. So will the 7 of McClenny. It is a one-way ticket down the leaderboard for Nick Vroman. Up front, James Houghton back to the bumper of Garrett Maines. Can he challenge for the race lead? Looking low, but timid to take the bite on the inside.
Yeah, probably has figured out that really it's that top lane that's going to work. So he's got to hope that eventually that Maines slips up, maybe gets a little loose or doesn't get the perfect run. But this, of course, is a battle we saw earlier in the night. When I'm guessing Evan's now going to be about 100 laps ago since Maines took the lead. Houghton was the person he took it from.
There has only been 2 drivers to lead a lap so far in this race tonight. 139, now 140 have gone in favor of Garrett Maines. The other 83 in favor of James Houghton. We have seen Bolin, we've seen Vroman and others get up into the top 5, but they haven't been able to crack the code and to get up to the top spot. Patrick Gitter's been a top 10 car basically all night long. He rides in behind the top-ranked driver in this race, the number 1 of Jacob Schneider.
Yeah, Gitter doing a great job. Recipient of the lucky dog earlier from one of those cautions, so has made the most of it and put himself back up here in the top 10 of this race. Great job for him. Oh, a little bit of contact there. I thought I saw about the 8 in the middle of your screen there, but everyone got it worked out. We're all good, and we're going to keep racing here. This is right behind Gitter. So this is back here for 10th, 11th, and 12th on backs, what we're looking at. And they're racing hard.
They're working hard, and it is going to be full tilt, no holds bar on these restarts where drivers see the opportunities to make up positions in bulk on a rare occasion. Look at that 4-car, kind of sneaking high, sneaking low. Gitter trying to position himself to the outside of Paul Brigoli. That one of Schneider gets by Brigoli, and now you feel like you're stuck on the bottom if you're that 17 car. Gitter's going to pass you. Gossett's going to go to the outside. Look at this 4-car. Gitter just made a pass on the outside, now daring to go to the bottom. Is that going to put him at risk, though, because Tommy Gossett going to be quick to fill the gap? Did the 4-car just screw himself over?
Yeah, very possibly did. We'll wait and see how that plays out here. You know, we called out Omar earlier for his Road to Pro runs and contender runs. Tommy Gossett as well has made runs into the Road to Pro Series and is trying to get his way into the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We'll see if that works out for him. Good luck to Tommy on that adventure. But man, contact again almost right there with those 2 cars, and they've got it worked out, but I don't know if they're done beating and banging here at Bristol.
And we're not even halfway home, so I think we are far from done with the aggression and the theatrics in this 500-lap, 250-mile bout inside of the Coliseum. Bottom of the racetrack. That's still that 17 now of Paul Brigoli. He's lost a host of spots on the inside line in this run. Got passed on the bottom, made his way back in line, then got stuck on the bottom again. He will level out in the number 11 spot. It's been a quiet night for a car who qualified inside of the top 5. Just haven't seen that little bit extra out of the Brigoli camp quite yet.
No, not quite yet. Paul Brigoli is a very accomplished oval racer. Races a lot for the Precision Racing League in our Sunday Night Cup Series. So a very accomplished driver, a Florida native. Always typically runs some form of that white and purple from what I can remember seeing Paul race here across the iRacing service. So doing a great job here, coming through 3 and 4 back to the start-finish line. You know, Evan, a great example of saying how fast this track is. How often do we talk to drivers who say, hey, listen, you know, I knew a wreck was happening, but someone said in the front straight, the back straight, and I forgot what straight I was on. You know, am I in turn 1 or am I in turn 3? The corners happen so fast and the track moves so fast that it's easy to get turned around and almost forget where you are.
There's 2 reasons why. If somebody makes a pass right here, for example, off of turn number 4, that I'm not going to say turn number 4 until now. Number 1 is, well, it only takes about 4 seconds to get to turn 1. The second bit of it is, sometimes I'm waiting to see if I see a start-finish line or not, because I don't know if they're on the front stretch or the back stretch either. It's a symmetrical racetrack. It is fast. It is unforgiving. And did I mention it's really fast? I mean, again, you're barely on these straightaways for a moment to maybe blink, maybe stretch your fingers, and then you're right back into it.
Yeah, it's a very, very fast track. Very hard for the spotters to keep up with. Something else we can talk about tonight. So a lot of these drivers will have real life or online friends who are in the sim watching, just spotting, telling them where the wrecks are, what's happening as the 21 car is now happening because he tries to make the run on the bottom. I think that was going to be for the 12 car up top and made the pass on the bottom lane.
And making a move on the bottom. We've seen it happen tonight, mainly later in this race and when tires have been a little bit more worn. But again, maybe we've hit that point where the inside is a viable line. Now, we just saw drivers struggle on the restart, so I think you need a combination of a racetrack that's had the 244 laps now complete on it, rubbered in, temperature put into the racing surface, but also you still need those tires to be a little bit worn out before that becomes an option. And we'll see if anybody else wants to continue to flirt with the innermost lane as you see throughout the field here the likes of Bolin and others. Graham's up to 3rd. It's the highest we've seen him tonight. Does he make a move on Houghton at any point here and try to go to P2? Maines has gapped Houghton by a little bit. It's about an 8-car length of difference between the leader and the car in second. You're on board with Graham Bolin, who I mentioned earlier in 2 weeks' time is going to be fighting for $100,000 in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series finale at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I'm sure he's been spending a lot of track time at Homestead. Doesn't mean he can't still wheel it here at Bristol. And now going to the bottom of Houghton. Can't make it stick there. It's a risky move because Newman, right there, if you get stuck on the door of the 14 on the bottom, you bet that 22 is going to fill the gap up top.
Yeah, he almost did. I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, Boland's making a move here, because if he gets caught, out there, he will get caught in that bottom lane and pass. But this is the battle I'm most curious about. These guys beat and banged earlier. Maybe a little aggression out of Graham and a couple of, attempted passes that led to contact that very easily could have wrecked one or both cars. And then, as I said, Houghton with a little shot to the back of Bolin later, I think was sort of his own way of saying, hey, knock it off. So I'm curious how these two race when they do get side by side. Is maybe Graham a little bit more patient than normal because he doesn't want to raise the ire of Houghton anymore? Does Graham say, hey, listen, I know he's mad at me, so I'm going to be quick in passing and maybe be a little bit more risky? Or how this plays out will be super interesting.
And we are officially halfway home in this Bristol 500. 252 laps complete, 248 laps to go right there. So we will now start counting our way down to the end of this race. Only about an hour and 18 minutes removed from the drop of the green flag. This race has had pretty good pace. Caution flags in the single digits through the first half. It's been a pretty good Bristol 500, I'd say, to this point.
Oh, very good, very clean. Lots of good hard racing. So yeah, something to be proud of for these top split drivers so far in this race as we cross halfway. By the way, Evan, here's Nathan Eggert. We saw him on the track earlier throughout the night, and unfortunately for him, a little bit of contact there. Slower car, and he is done. He reported as a blown motor, and he is done for, well, he's not done for the night. He's done for a while they try to replace that motor, but going to put him multiple laps down.
He's going to join the likes of Ronald Cross, Omar Diallo, and Tyler Latterell as the drivers who have dropped out of this race in the first half. Well, as we start to race towards the end of this one, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we'll go through the field and get you set for the second half of an endurance night in Bristol. You're watching RaceSpotted iRacing's coverage of the Bristol 500. Bolin wins Pocono and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course. He's headed back to the championship for Steven Wilson, winner at Texas Motor Speedway. Parker White wins at Phoenix and will fight for an NASCAR championship in 2024. And back live at iRacing's virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, where RaceSpotTV's coverage of the iRacing Bristol 500 continuing here tonight as the iRacing special events calendar rolls on through 2024. Happy that you're with us as we start to get late into the evening on the East Coast. Myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Derek Watson up in the broadcast booth. Our producer downstairs is Hugo Luis. Right now, watching a great battle between Cabe McClenney and Nicholas Vroman in a battle for P5 and P6. But Derek, to this point in the race, it has been all Garrett Maines and James Houghton. We've seen other drivers try to be a part of the conversation. Bolin notably still within striking distance in third, but it has been all Maines and Houghton thus far. We'll see what's in store for the next 230.
Yeah, a long way to go still as far as the lap count is concerned. And you see Vroman got ahead. Now the undercut is going to come into play here as he's going to try to get him, but nope, not getting there. Vroman's going to make the pass clean, and now there's a little bit of a choo-choo train behind, as you see here from the view behind Vroman. That's Jacob C. Schneider, making the pass. But Evan, we watched that video for the NASCAR finale, and what a class that is. You and I talked earlier about the diversity across the iRacing. Think about that. Parker White, you know, one of the brand new NASCAR drivers up against Bobby Zielinski, who it feels like has been around for a long, long time. Steven Wilson returning back to the finale. You know, all the drivers who are involved in that. It's such a diverse class right there. That finale is something to watch. I don't know how it's going to play out. You know, obviously Bobby Zielinski's hoping to win that first title again. Feels like he's been there so many times.
Feels hard to bet against a Bobby because, you know, it feels like that he's a season ticket holder in the Championship 4. But you look at kind of the major statistical categories, and yeah, he's been to the Championship 4 more than anybody else. It'll be his 6th appearance. He's never won it. So one side of you says, well, he's got to be due. On the other side, it may say, maybe he just can't do it at Homestead, right? Same racetrack that he's had a couple of shots at doing it at. And as we watch this battle for 8th continue on, Zielinski doesn't lead in any of the major stat categories on the season or historically at Homestead, as Brower got a bit of a piece of that one, right? Steven Wilson's got more wins than anybody else in this Championship 4 this year at 4. He's got more top 5s than any of them with 10, more top 10s than any of them with 13, and he's a defending champ. So what is the only way that you can bet against Steven Wilson? Average Homestead finish. And of those 4, Parker White with a 3.0 has an incredibly ridiculous good average finish at Homestead. That is the only stat category that could dare me to bet against Steven Wilson for becoming the first back-to-back NASCAR champ since Ray Alfala did it nearly a dozen years ago.
And man, to think that Parker White is there, Evan, it's, you know, when I first got into sim broadcasting, sim commentary, I started off by doing some article writing and getting to know some of the drivers. And it was only feels like yesterday I was talking to Parker White as a Road to Pro driver. So just to see him there already is just, wow, that's so cool for him. I'm happy for all those guys. You'll get to be there with them live at the Hall of Fame. And of course, it'll broadcast on all of the iRacing channels October 1st. And you and I talked on Monday. It's a unique experience there at the Hall of Fame.
It really is. I mean, not only is it the most important race of the year, evidently, right? $100,000 on the line for the race winner. More than $500,000 on the line total in that race when you look at the driver championship, the team championship, and more. But it is kind of more like the Super Bowl than the NBA Finals, and the fact that it's a neutral site, right? In a lot of pro sports, the highest seeded driver is at their home court, right? Your home team, your home crowd. You don't get that in racing. You don't get that in this finale. And it's amplified to the fact that, again, you're out of your element. You're not in your sim rig. You're going to try your very best to recreate it, right? Bring your monitors, bring your pedals, but you're not at home. Your race day kind of ritual is going to be different, as Paul Bergoli, the latest member of the 3 Wide Club, he'll shake off the 27 and the 30 for now. But that's the biggest takeaway for me is, yes, they're all extremely talented, but it's the only race of the year, excluding those handful of drivers for the Chicago Street Race who are racing out at the Navy Pier. The only race where you're not at home, you're out of your element, and that is what makes it so weird. And I always feel bad for them, Derek, because they're playing the broadcast audio in the room. So those poor guys, I hope, have their headsets turned up so they don't have to listen to me critiquing it as the race goes on.
Yeah, that would be a challenge for anyone, no matter who the commentator is, to hear someone critiquing your work live. Well, looking back on this race here, we're now up, getting closer to lap 300, and lots of tight racing still happening. We're still seeing that temperatures rise a little bit inside the cars, Evan. Lots of small chatter in the voice comms. Hey, car low. And when they're saying that, they're not saying it in a helpful way. They're saying it sort of a passive aggressive, or hey, maybe just aggressive way of saying, hey, like, you know, I'm down here. Could you maybe not, you know, make contact? And so that's happening more and more as these lap counts go on here. And here's a nice 4 or 5 car battle here on your screen, and just drivers trying to find lanes, trying to make moves happen, and they're now all trying to get around to 31.
And again, not to raise all the alarm bells, but for a lot of these cars, they're on 80-lap old tires. This is when we started to see them turn the corner. Tommy Gossett, who's a part of this battle, that 13 car on the outside of the racetrack, pitted on the most recent yellow when a majority of the cars did not. So Tommy Gossett has better tires than a lot of the cars around him to the tune of about 11 laps. He's the second highest running driver of those who pitted on the most recent yellow, right? So we had a caution. Everybody came down pit road and took tires. 10 laps later, we had another yellow. A majority of the cars stayed out, but Gossett got fresh tires. He's got a small advantage. He's dug through the field to get up to the number 11 spot. And then Jacob Brower quietly sneaking up to P7. He is the highest running car of those who pitted on the most recent caution when not everybody did. So Brower P7 got a little bit of a tire advantage. That's something that we haven't seen tonight. So interesting to have that added element of strategy for the first time.
Yeah, they'll start to play in, and hey, if this can stay green, we'll see more and more of that as drivers want to pit at different moments and different times to set themselves up for the end of this race and how it's going to look here. But again, that 31 car's up top and getting past multiple times here. You see there's so many cars going around. There's Paul Bergoli on the bottom. You see the 27s involved in the photo as well. Just everyone's trying to get around that car here successfully. So, Evan, right now, for these drivers, what's got to be happening, and you know, the fatigue is setting in. You start to break a focus a little bit. Maybe you just kind of get a little punch drunk inside the car because you're just tired, you're giddy. Different feelings can happen, and if you break focus at this track even for half a second, it could all really go poorly just that fast.
There's a lot of races on the service where we talk about the physicality of it, right? Where it is legitimately physically demanding to drive for that long. And I had pointed out, you know, it hasn't been that long since the green flag flew, just now hitting about an hour and 29 minutes since we took the green flag. That's not that long, but a lap here at Bristol is going to kick your butt way more than a lap at Charlotte when I compared this one to the Coke 600, which is the longest of the oval races on the iRacing special events calendar. It's also getting a little bit later into the night. Again, if you're on the East Coast, maybe getting a little bit tired. If you didn't plan your sleep schedule around this one to a T, and again, just because you're working so much harder, an hour and a half at Bristol might feel like 3 hours at an intermediate racetrack. So to your point, all it takes is one corner to mess it up, right? 500 laps, that's 4 turns a lap. If you just made one mistake on any corner entry or any corner exit tonight, that is 2,000 different opportunities to make a mistake and throw it away.
You know, and what I find interesting about that, of course, you know, iRacing being a worldwide service is, hey, listen, for one time, being a West Coaster pays off for people like me, right? Now, the race start a little less convenient, 6 p.m. Eastern. You barely get time to get home from work, maybe get some dinner in you. Maybe you don't want to eat dinner because it's a long race. You don't want to have some other problems, but you know, but however, when this thing ends, it'll be 9:30, maybe at the latest, depending on how this race goes. So for once, being a West Coaster pays off. But I went through our entry list, Evan. There's one California native in Cabe McClinney in the 7 car. And after that, I think Texas is as far west as anyone is in this race. Well, maybe James Houghton. We don't know what part of Canada he's in. Canada, of course, goes, you know, all across. But I was thinking, man, for the West Coasters having an advantage in this race, we only have one West Coaster.
Yeah, interesting. And maybe some of those West Coast drivers may opt to choose a different one, right? Maybe it's a large time commitment in the middle of the evening that keeps them away from doing it in this time slot. So maybe they will opt to do it at a different point over the course of the weekend. Attrition continues to play into effect. We mentioned that 4 cars are out of this race: Biggert, Cross, Diallo, and Latterell. But there are only 19 cars actively on the lead lap in this race. And with each passing lap, Garrett Maines and company continue to catch and pass more. He's about to put Bergoli a lap down next. So there is always something, unlike in another track where if you're the leader, you get out in front. For the most part, you enjoy clean air. Garrett Maines probably has to deal with the worst of the lap traffic because he's the first to get to them. And they're going to be incentivized to not get out of his way and make it hard on him because they want to stay on the lead lap. They feel like if I can just hold off Garrett for another lap and a half and a caution comes out, I'm going to look like a genius. Whereas if I let this guy go and then immediately after that, there's a yellow, I'm going to feel real silly. So they may be a little bit more difficult on mains than anybody else would have to deal with.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Typically, the leader is the one you fight the hardest. There's typically, I think, 2 fights for a driver. There's not getting lapped, and then there's that whole sticking there behind the leader so that you can always be the first car a lap down for that lucky dog rule. But you're right. Typically, you fight the leader the hardest because of that happening. And oftentimes, you know, depending on how your night is going as a driver in the back of the field, you get kind of miserable, you get grumpy, you can zone out and almost forget that the leader is coming. Now, one of the new improvements for iRacing in the past 6 months or so, Evan, is that spotter call we get from the iRacing spotter telling us, hey, the leader's coming behind you. He's not, this is not our fight to fight. And it'll kind of remind you to, you know, just maybe move out of the way if you can and not make that leader's life difficult. That was a car in the bottom of the track coming up the hill. Did you see that?
Oh, and into the inside wall, the 27 car. Is there going to be a yellow for Matt Cox? He will limp back onto the racetrack down the backstretch. Surprised that he did not come to pit road there after he took a pretty good hit to the inside wall, and now he's still in the middle of the racetrack. And now the 27 of Cox is going to spin. There's going to be a caution, and that is a ridiculous yellow flag to have for somebody who should have been off the racetrack 2 laps ago.
Yeah, there's the initial cause. That's what I saw right there. I saw him come up the track as Garrett Mays was going by.
So pit right here. That's pit entry right there. What's the point of forcing the car back onto the racetrack?
Well,
and causing the yellow?
I mean, from a selfish standpoint of Matt Cox, the reason you do it is you pit under yellow and not under green. But that's not the right reason to do it. I don't agree with that at all. I'm saying that, oh, this is what happens. That's, I don't want to pick my words well, Evan. That's egregious, unnecessary, protestable. I can find some more words, but I'll move on.
It's tough, right? I mean, he's keeping the car on the apron. I get it, but there's just no reason for the car to be driving at all at that point. I mean, you smack the wall, pit road entry's 4 feet in front of you. I get it if you're on the backstretch, but that's one of the more inexcusable cautions that I've seen in some time. And the unfortunate thing is, we had cars on 110 lap oldest tires. The longest green flag run of the night is going to come to an end because of a silly accident like that for a car that was running, you know, laps down. And it's disappointing to see that that is how this thing is going to shake out. Cox was at the tail end of the lead lap, I should say, when it happened. But all the race leaders going to be coming down pit road. We talked about a little bit of discrepancy with the tire and fuel strategy with a couple of cars who had slightly better tires. That's out the window now. And Garrett Mains, just like he's a robot, is perfect in and out of pit road again.
Yeah, I'm still a loss of words. Sorry, I'm trying to gather up some thoughts about what happened there. I mean, as I said, I kind of get it from a driver's standpoint. You want to save the car and not pit, but you know, then when the car gets out from under you like that and you end up back up in front of the field, it's just, it's dangerous, it's reckless, it's disappointing to the rest of the field. Well, Evan, now we get to 186 to go. It's time to talk about what happens from here. If this were to stay green, knock on wood, from here, I don't think they can make it from here, but we're going to be really, really, really darn close in terms of Bristol laps to making it. Monday night, you and I saw drivers going in as much as 150 laps on a tank, so they could be maybe 35 laps short on gas here, which in the terms of Bristol is only a couple of minutes of time. But if this stays green, there's still some strategy to be played out.
There is still strategy to be decided in this race. And I keep waiting as we go through these different cycles of this race to see, does something change, right? I mean, I mentioned off at the top, and you came in with the stats, the fact that entering tonight, Garrett Mains led 432 laps on Wednesday night. He led 485 laps on Thursday night. And then when we get 100 laps into this race and Haughton's led 80, I'm thinking certainly there's no chance that Garrett Mains dominates this race in the lap lead column like he's done all week long. You blink your eyes, He's already led 232 and is the control car again. 184 laps to go. Green flag in the air. Here comes Bolin to the inside of Houghton. Can he clear for P2?
That'll be the question right now. What can Graham Bolin do? He's going to try to ride it up through the middle of the corner and get every ounce of grip and run he can. But for now, Houghton is doing a great job on the top lane and will clear Bolin, and Bolin pulls up in line.
Bolin gets up in line after being unable to secure the pass for P2. If Graham Bolin's going to win this race, I need to see something now. He's been in the conversation, drove through the field, hung around in 5th for a while, hung around in 3rd for a while. Can he do something with the 2 and the 14 car? Couple of bits of side-by-side in the top 10, middle of the screen there. That's the 22 of Brad Newman. Holds off Roman for P4.
Yeah, doing a great job there as Brad Newman now wants to catch up here to Graham Bolin. But to come back to that thought that's in my head about the pit stops if we stay green, that would mean, Evan, that anyone pitting under this cycle, if we stay green, they're not going to have time to put tires on this car. It's going to be a gas-only stop. So from here, I think this run right now for the leaders, for Maines, Houghton, Bolin, Newman, maybe even Roman, is about tire conservation. If you burn up your tires, you're going to be in an island of not happiness when this race is over.
Some chatter over the radio as drivers try to navigate who's letting somebody go for position and who's fighting somebody for it. It's that point in the race where those tempers are starting to wear thin. Drivers going to be frustrated if they felt like they were in a good running spot before the yellow came out, and now they have to deal with all this traffic and drivers nipping at their heels and making big slide jobs, and they're putting blocks onto people. Restart's going to be agitating, especially the later we go in the race. Look at the 7 car, and McClenny, he's really pushing up on Schneider, trying his best to make the bottom lane kind of the outside. Doesn't pinch this time as they come through the center of 3 and 4, but last time at 1 and 2, he put it up on the door of the 1 car. It was good when he did it. Look out, slow car in front. What a move by the 1 to sneak in between them.
Wow, what a move indeed. So here's the California native in that yellow machine trying to make moves and get to the front of the field and see he can make happen. But now as we look further ahead, you see Newman, you see Bolin, and then you see, of course, Houghton and Maines leading this race around here. Now look at that up top, Evan. We got to the point we're now counting down in laps. Not only is that a point for us as commentators or for the viewers, I guarantee you as a driver, that number starts to tick down whenever you look at that little black box in iRacing that tells you how many laps are left, and it feels good when it's that way.
Jacob Schneider frustrated on the radio. There might have been contact with Schneider and McClenny, and that led to a heated discussion. Schneider frustrated, feeling like he's passed McClenny clean several times tonight and then basically got walled by the 7. And McClenny apologizing for it. Obviously, I don't think he meant to do it based on his words, but I don't think Schneider cares because that 1 car is hurt right now.
Yeah, he's coming down pit road. I think he has some required repairs to do. He does.
Wow.
That is going to take him out of contention. And the words, I'll repeat, you just made a new enemy. That's what Schneider said. Now, he may calm down and rethink that, and maybe he'll feel better or worse, who knows, after this race happens. But those are the words from Schneider.
That's all it takes. Any sort of quick repair that Schneider can do is irrelevant. Schneider will not win this Bristol 500 simply because he's going to lose way too many laps as that car comes to pit road. And as they say, another one bites the dust. That's a couple of big name cars in this race that have had issues. Ronald Cross started top 10. He's since dropped out of it now with the issues there. Schneider, top seeded car in this top split race. He's going to end up somewhere in obscurity in the mid-20s.
Yeah, likely, by the way, just from my experience in the sim, Schneider likely broke a toe link, for the record, is what happened. Here's Jose Acosta and Paul Bergoli. Those guys race together every Sunday in the Precision Racing League, so I'm a little surprised they're the ones getting together, but Jose Acosta going to get quarter-turned and save the car there on the track.
slow car on the apron in turn number 1. No caution. Things stay green for the moment. Jacob Klein was barking out on the radio for drivers to be aware that there was a car with issues. It was the 34 of Alan Pajari. That car spun on his own, or with some assistance, pounded the pit road wall and has decided to bring the car to pit road instead of continuing. What a novel concept.
By the way, I will correct myself here real quick. Jacob Schneider, apparently I was wrong, Evan. He's already back on track now, 5 laps down. But had he broken a toe link in iRacing, that would have been about an 8-minute repair. So not what I thought happened to the car, but still a frustrating night.
So Pajari down pit road. That's another driver who is still in it off. There's the hit. I mean, that is absolutely pounding the pit road wall for Pajari, and then came down pit road and is going to get repairs. His night done off the bumper of one of his fellow competitors. Meanwhile, up in front it is still Maines, who appears to be on relative cruise control for the last 150 laps plus, but look at Graham Boland. Has not been any higher than 3rd place all race long and is putting pressure on James Houghton as we close in on 150 laps to go. Boland gonna need to pull out a show-stopping run to the end if he could upset these two.
Yeah, Boland's trying really hard, but I mean, it just feels like I dare to use the word historically here this week at Bristol. That bottom lane, this isn't happening unless the driver up top is having some kind of problem, whether it be just a bad entry or worn tires or something. Boland's going to have to find a way to almost force his way to the outside or let Houghton hit the wall.
Either or. Sometimes you can put pressure on somebody in front of you and force them into a mistake. And I will almost always defer that even the very best are unlikely to be kind of tricked into a mistake like that. But then you see some of the very best get a little bit too nosy, right? They're looking in the rearview mirror. They're kind of driving out of the back of the car and basing their racing line on what the car behind them doing. And I've seen the very best on this service make mistakes. So yes, just kind of being consistently there can force your competitor into a mistake. And now look at this. These race leaders going to start serpentining through lap traffic, trying to pass the 1 car Schneider on the bottom, while the 30 Richardson's on the outside.
Now here's the downside for Boland. Look at that lap car up top. Boland has to move to the bottom. That will kill a little bit of time there. And you see the gap now between himself and Houghton has grown. Now you see Newman right there on the back of Boland. So when you need to make a pass in the bottom, it seems like it should work better, Evan. It's so confusing to the simple mind because you always want to think the inside lane is faster. That's what science teaches us, but not so much tonight here at Bristol Motor Speedway.
We talked extensively earlier, if you're just joining us now in the second half of this race, on that preferred lane being the outside of the racetrack, but the inside has gotten better and better as the night has gone on, but it seems to take a hot racetrack with rubber on it and somewhat older tires for drivers to be able to make the bottom work. It has been better, but at no point has it flipped to be the preferred lane. We have just not seen it change that drastically. The top side is still the place to be as we continue to run now 149 laps to go. 350 in the book. Garrett Maines is looking real good. 0.6 of a second out in front. I know that is not a lot. It's barely the blink of an eye, Derek, but by the basis of this race, one of the biggest gaps for the lead we've seen all night. He actually gained more time over Houghton and Boland through the lap traffic. So many times leaders struggle and lose time when they get to traffic. Not Maines. He's been killing it in that department.
Yeah, doing a great job so far. We're watching Boland here up top in that yellow and purple machine with the black in the background. Then that's going to be Brad Newman and Nicholas Vroman behind him here as they're working the top lanes here at Bristol. And just so many questions left to be answered here. What happens, when it happens. You know, if you have the confidence it will stay green, when do you pit? Do you run the car dry? Do you pit early and hope to be on a different cycle? So much left to go. I'm excited. I love this part of the race, Evan. You know I'm a numbers nerd. I'm a stats nerd. I just love all the what-if questions we can ask from here. And then you see a car on the bottom of the track. All is good there. Nothing to worry about. Look at that Look at that Bolin finally working the top lane there. Really kind of ripped it around there.
And trying to rip it around as Graham Bolin has done what he can, but as they continue to see Mains pull away, I wonder if Bolin starts to push a little bit more aggressively, right? Does he feel like he needs to go now? Now it's Bolin with the mistake. Drives it loose into the corner, into the outside wall. Vroman passes Bolin, and I was about to say, with Mains running away and with Vroman applying pressure from behind, does Bolin need to get aggressive and instead overdrove the car?
Yeah, very possibly. Watch this here. This is on board with Graham Bolin. Just gets up there, and I told you, that's the danger of running the top lane at Bristol, is you can scrub that wall, and that wall will scrub your speed. It will just kill your momentum and put you well behind. Well, that lead's coming down a little bit, Evan. Now down to 0.7 of a second. It was a little bigger. Otten's had a couple of great laps here. He's about 1/10 of a second faster lap per lap right now. So see if he can make that work.
Look at the 15 car there of Bolin, still a little bit loose. Brad Newman going to go to the bottom and gets on by. I think Bolin's car damaged after hitting the fence. Is that the end of the challenge tonight for Graham Bolin, one of the very best in these cars on this service?
You know, Evan, I don't know. Like, that was such a small hit to the wall. It's hard for me to think that car is damaged. It almost makes you wonder if maybe the confidence of Graham Bolin is a little damaged. And that's hard to say when you're talking about one of the best in the business, but maybe he's a little off his game. Maybe he's a little frustrated in the car, a little angry and mad at himself and just kind of not running his best laps. And that happens to a driver. You can really get into almost a self-monologue with yourself and, you know, that was so stupid of me. Why did I do that? I'm so mad at myself. But hold on. Caution's out. We'll come back to that.
Caution flag is out. We will slow him down again after a 50-lap run. Maybe it was that 32 a Crow. We'll try to find for sure. Oh, yeah, sideways on his own. Locked it up. Did the right thing by locking it up, but the car came to a complete stop. And at some tracks, Derek, iRacing considers the apron off of the racing surface clear. That is not the case here at Bristol because it's so close to the racing surface. So when that car came to a stop on the apron, it was going to be an automatic yellow right away.
Yep, that is definitely the case. Well, 1:54 to go. I hate to say it, Evan, but I think this is going to take away all of those questions, all the equations, all the what-ifs, all that fun stuff I love. I think everybody pits here from the lead lap, and then we're good to go. Now, a caution later. Maybe you want to put more tires on, get better grip. But gas-wise, I think we're good from right here.
Going to be good to the end. And does this save Bolin, who we felt was damaged, because now he has an opportunity to maybe repair that car down on pit road. We'll see if he takes any additional time in the box. Remember, he's pitted on the backstretch, so he's got his right side tires up. He's going to go left side tires up. Well, these leaders come all the way around to the front straightaway. Bolin spending no additional time in pit road, so obviously no major damage on the car. Now let's see how the leaders navigate their stops.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Of course, Garrett Maines, you said multiple times, the very first pit stall, long ride down. Now, the benefit for him, he basically gets to punch the gas pedal when they drop his car. He's not have to worry about speeding off a pit road because there's not enough time to get up to speed almost on this pit road from where he exits. So then he goes off a pit road, and Graham Bolin fell back a couple spots.
He did drop back a couple spots in all of that, as Garrett Maines is once again, pinch me if you've heard this one before, first in, first off a pit road. It's just been automatic. And again, there's so many drivers who can be the fastest but can't put together the night/the nights that Garrett Maines has been putting together here at Bristol, because even if you're the fastest car, can you maintain that over the course of a 40-lap run, an 80-lap run, and a 120-lap run, right? Can you manage the tires? He's done that tonight. Can you nail your restarts? He's done it tonight. Can you make sure you stay unforced error-free and nail your pit stops under yellow? He's done that tonight. So, well, yes, the speed of Maines has been impressive. It's really the full package that he's brought to this race that has been the most impressive.
Yeah, it really is, right? And as you look at all those stats from Graham Boland for the week, already won a Bristol 500, came darn near close to winning a second one already, has led, now got to be well up into the 900, maybe 1,000 laps in these 3 races at Bristol. Obviously, he knows this track. Obviously, he loves the track. Obviously, he's got it figured out. So that setup is locked in to this track. By the way, to come back around to a bit of a comedic relief, some of the drivers were kind of talking to Vincent Crowe, want to know what happened or, you know, anything. He just said, hey, I need to not be so bad at this and I'll be okay. I've said that a few times.
Done, right? Which is funny, looking, you know, from me critiquing and to my point about talking about the drivers at the live finale, because anybody in this field, including him, plenty more capable behind the wheel than myself. Big shot on the bottom. Vroman wants to go. Green flag back in the air. And Maines punted back to the race lead. Vroman nose in front for second, though. Going to be tough as Houghton gets up to speed on the outside, though.
Yeah, Houghton's up there. Now Newman's going to come around, and Graham Boland wants to help him get up there in line and see if he can make that pass happen. They're all going to try to pass that car on the bottom, sort of parade style, see if they can make it happen. But right now there's a gap here between Newman and Boland. Nope, not there. Thought maybe that car was going to pull up, and he is. Boland did not make that pass.
Boland couldn't do it there. The 15 trying to dig himself out of a hole. He's down to 5th. Is there enough time for Boland to get back into it? Behind him, it's Cabe McClenny on the bottom. The 71, a Jacob Brower on the outside. That's a battle for 6th and 7th spot. The 7's digging hard. And what was it that we settled on? The lemonade yellow, number 7 on the inside. But at 21 is in line and just has to be okay through the corner. And he'll get him here eventually, I think.
Yeah, you know what? Seeing Boland and McClenny side by side or front to back here, as the case may be, does help you go. You're right. Lemonade was the right call. It wasn't highlighter yellow. The highlighter yellow is more of what Graham Boland has on that paint scheme.
It certainly is. Front of that race car, it's given the Menards yellow from the Paul Menards days and the NASCAR Cup Series, and they still support, I think, some of the Junior Motorsports efforts in the Xfinity Series. That's an iconic yellow. That's what I'm seeing on the front of Boland's car, but he's still in 5th, still with work to do. Top 10, single filed out for the most part as we watch the fight up now for the race lead. Houghton is on the bumper of Garrett Maines. Can he get there? Newman's on the bumper of Houghton for P2. The 14's a sandwich in this battle right now.
Look at Newman all over this back bumper. Menace-like behavior is what he's doing right now. Just trying to make his presence felt, saying, hey, how are you? I'm here. And I'm pretty sure, Evan, this is maybe the highest we've seen Brad Newman all night up here in P3. But this right now, as we're numerous laps into this run, this is maybe the best these guys have done at keeping with Garrett Maines. Typically, Maines pulls away, has a moment, does Newman. Wow, that car wiggled really hard. But I was going to say, typically, you know, Maines has a moment where he pulls away from the field, puts a gap on them. But right now, Houghton and Newman are doing an amazing job at keeping up with Garrett Maines.
Maines was able to run away the last time. This is the most spirited effort we've seen at a Houghton since it seems like he has settled for being second to fiddle for the last 200-plus laps, where Garrett Maines has been on cruise control. And you can see the 14 trying to get to the outside. He knows that he is not going to win this race. At least he thinks that on the bottom, unless you're going to rough that number 2 car out. Now, if we go 115 laps to the end of this race green, then maybe tires will fall off enough and drivers can open up the bottom for business again. But Houghton committed to the outside, and maybe a small sigh of relief for Maines as he establishes a couple cars' length of buffers.
Yeah, and you see Newman here trying to make that bottom work. The Australian native wants to really get in here and get this pass completed, but as we've seen tonight, maybe that bottom lane is not the way to do it. So we'll see if he eventually changes up here and goes to the top lane. But Brad Newman doing an amazing job in that sort of gradient blue. It goes from like a darker royal blue to almost an aqua blue, aqua green in front of the car. It's not quite seafoam. I don't know if it's seafoam. Yeah, I was wondering.
Seafoam fan, so maybe I'm just blinded by my desire for it to be seafoam.
Dude, that is, some of the things you say, I'm a seafoam fan, I don't get it. That's it. What did you say a couple weeks ago, like my Toronto Raptors? Is that something like you said to me recently? I don't know.
That's a thing?
No, it's not.
I stand on principle, and I
oh my gosh,
on the hills at which I have decided to die on, and seafoam green is a good color, but I see a lot of blue on race cars. Is there not a superstition about drivers not wanting green cars? Is that still a thing, or was that more of a 90s, early 2000s thing?
There was always the belief that, red made you go faster. I remember that superstition, but I don't know about blue and green. You're right, there's a lot of blue, and I think it's because it pops so well in daytime and nighttime, whatever the light settings are, it happens here. And there's a throwback to the old Budweiser scheme on the 21, sort of fitting tonight as, no spoilers, but I think it's safe to say everyone knows that Dale Jr. ran in the Xfinity Series race here at Bristol tonight. So you can probably catch a replay of that somewhere in the CW app or wherever it appears, but a nice throwback on a night where Dale Jr. is racing.
I think he got a top 10 in that one as well, so it was pretty impressive showing, I'd say, for Dale Jr. in that race, and good to see him back in the Xfinity car. I think he also hinted that it may not be the end of his NASCAR National Touring Series career. He was kind of hinting at maybe another start in 2026. So who knows? Dale might be back in a car inside of NASCAR's Top 3 Series in a couple of years' time. Right here at Bristol, one of the most historic tracks on the NASCAR calendar and one of the most difficult, playing host to this Bristol 500. Lap car in between the leaders. That's the number 5 of James Holzer. He'll get up and out of the way of the 14. Nearly got loose and almost took him out there as he bobbled on the corner. And that was almost really bad.
Sort of on timing as well. In our Twitch chat on the iRacing channel, Baco Grande asked for more red and yellow cars. Well, there's the number 5 car, sir. So you asked, and our producer Hugo Luis delivered. There's a red and yellow car right there on your screen.
I've always been, all of my cars on the service were always some combination of red, black, and white. Typically black as a base, red as a secondary, with some white accents. I think a red race car, I know it's the easy answer. I know it's what everybody picks, but I do think there is very few, if no colors, that beat a red race car.
I'm a purple guy. I think purple is the best color out there. So anytime I can put purple into a paint scheme, I'm a happy guy.
And that's unique. I like that. I also, number 13 is my number, which seems to be also one of the more popular ones. Most people in like traditional sports would consider it superstitious. Race car drivers don't seem to be afraid of the number 13 as much, though. So that was always a hard one to get in iRacing League racing as well. Here's the onboard with James Houghton. Remember, he led 83 laps. Many of those, if not all of them, I think might have been in the first 100 of this one, where he was the dominant car. He started third, passed Maines early, passed McClenny, and got out and in front of the field. And since then, he hasn't fallen that far back, but just hasn't had enough to get that little bit more. Look at this 3-car stack up from Brower in P6 on back. It's the 7 car. A Gabe McClenny in the conversation. He tried to go low. They're all chasing Bolin, who has not been able to improve from his P5 spot.
And I thought Brower was going to run Bolin over there. I really did. I thought he was just getting the back of him and just sort of bump him around. But he backed out of it. Great job for Brower there to show that control of the car and make that happen. Well, Evan, we pitted at about 150 laps to go, so we're about 55, maybe 60 laps into this run already, which sounds crazy to say. That's just how fast it happens. But now for a driver, I start to wonder that aspect. I have to start thinking, when am I going to pit? And what can I get out of pitting early, right? If I'm a Brad Newman, and I'm stuck behind these cars, and I think I'm faster, but I just can't quite, get to my own braking points. Do I undercut this pit? Do I come down pit road early and hope I can find an oomph of clean track that I can play with and make up some time? Do I just run it dry and hope for the caution? Because listen, if you're Brad Newman and you pit early and that caution comes out, you're going to be stuck 2, 3, maybe 4 laps down in this race.
Yeah, it is a big risk. We've seen drivers with trouble tonight go to pit road, and we kind of rid them off right away, and that's because when you go those multiple laps down, it's just so impossible to get back, and you really cannot afford it. Track position is at a premium now that we are 400+ laps down and inside of the final 100 laps in this Bristol 500. If it stays green, surprisingly enough, that would only be about 23 minutes from now when the checkered flag would be coming out. But who knows what twists and turns are left in store for us in this one. Will it end with Garrett Maines in victory lane for a second night in a row in the top split of the 500? Or will we see a Houghton of Roman or somebody else play spoiler?
Yeah, and I should mention, I said, pitting, that's not guaranteed. I guess I should say, like, we saw drivers going roughly upwards of 150 on Monday nights. So that we thought was maybe pushing the limit. So with 154 to go, who knows what happens here? Maybe they got the gas, maybe they don't. And listen, if you're Garrett Maines and you're up there trying to push and pass cars and stay up front, you're burning more gas. So who knows if we have to pit again? Maybe not. But we'll wait and see here as we have 88 laps to go. And I'm impressed with Houghton and Vroman. Now, of course, Vroman won Wednesday night in the Open Series, so he, along with Garrett Maines, has a win here. But I'm impressed. I said it before. These guys are keeping pace. Oh, with Garrett Maines, but I got a lap car in the way, and that's maybe going to create a gap right here for the first time.
And it goes back to the point that I had mentioned earlier, is that so many leaders struggle with lapped cars, and Maines has excelled with the lap cars in this race. A lot of that is skill, right? Being able to set them up in the correct position. There is a little bit of it that is luck, though. You can catch somebody at just the worst time and sacrifice your corner, and we'll hold that thought because the yellow is out for John Whitendorf, who's around in the number 19 car, 3 laps down in the number 20 spot. Is in the fence. He may have had some help. There's that look there. That was the 34 car, who Pajari did get a little bit loose off the corner, but I don't think Pajari did a ton wrong. He probably could have been closer to the ball. I think Whitendorf just thought I was going to be clear and drove right across his nose.
Yeah, that's just one of those unfortunate moments of 2 cars coming together, and both probably had different expectations of what was going to happen there. But that will put the caution out here with less than 100 laps to go. Here comes everyone. So if there was a question for gas, that's done. But the bigger reason for pitting, I want new tires. It is hard to tell a driver you're not getting new tires, and there's plenty of tires to be had in this race. The special events do have a tire limit. It's a big amount. No one's going to come close to it in this race, Evan. But here we are. New tires will help every driver in this field.
And it's going to be one of the shortest intervals in between the pit stops that we have seen all night tonight, at only just shy of 50 laps from the last time we came down pit road. So that is pretty surprising. But again, it's an arms race to fresh rubber, and you got to come down if the cars around you are. Looks like Paul Brigoli from the lead lap did not come down in pit. That may put Brigoli to the race lead. Everybody on pit road still sticking with 4 tires. Nobody from the top 10 rolling the dice and going for 2. So Garrett Maines will lead off of pit road. But Paul Brigoli does indeed assume the race lead, only for a moment though, because Brigoli is now down pit road. So thought maybe we were going to see somebody put all the chips into the center of the table, but again, realistically, 50 laps on the tires, it would have been no-go for the 17, and curious if Brigoli simply missed the pit lane entry with where he was catching up to the field, because you wouldn't seemingly intentionally want to pit a lap later.
No, that was kind of confusing to me as well, but I was excited. I think every other driver was excited too, Evan, because that was going to be basically like a live science experiment of how that was going to work out for him, right? If you're someone else, if you're a Roman, a Bolin, a Newman, anyone, just down the list, you wanted to see how that was going to play out. What did Brigoli have tire-wise? How was it going to compare to the leaders? So if we get a caution 50 laps from now, those guys would know if that play is viable. I think a lot of guys were weirdly excited, but also nervous, because listen, I can tell you from experience, when you get a driver up front who's on old tires, you get nervous about the restart, spinning tires, slower starts, stacking up the field. But I was excited as a commentator to see what was going to happen.
So Brigoli cycles back out. He'll be 17th. He was 18th when the yellow came out, so nothing major there. And it sets us up for another restart, and now every single final restart of this race. It'll be with 79 laps to go. We've seen runs longer than that tonight. Can Garrett Maines lock it down? Green flag back in the air. Well and clear for the 2 car up front. Vroman in the 3 machine. He'll end up in second after passing Houghton on the inside.
And right now you see Bolin on the outside of Newman trying to get this pass done, but has the car in front of him, and that being Houghton. So he's kind of held up a little bit by that speed of Houghton, but he is going to make the pass on Newman. Here, oh, there's a car in the wall a couple times. That Budweiser 21 machine right there, that is Jacob Brouwer. And whoa, look at that car, just got a little loose out of that corner. So Brouwer's having a hard time here, maybe pushing really hard on these new tires.
You know that there's no scenario unless we go way into overtime where these tires have to do 100 plus laps. So you may be able to be slightly more aggressive on the tires than you would be if the length of the run was uncertain. You can't go crazy, you can't overdo it, but you can be a little bit more aggressive on the jump on an 80 lap run to the end as opposed to 130 laps. That is true. Newman on the bottom, getting the 4 car. Gitter passed him. Gitter was pushed by McClenny. They're going to tag team to get around the 22.
Yeah, Newman has fell back a bunch of spots here. Now back to P8. So a few spots back from where he started here. Now pulls in line barely up there in front of Tommy Gossett. And I thought that was going to be a moment right there. But look at this. This is the lead, Evan. This is Garrett Maines and Nicholas Vroman up front. Vroman, not the name we're used to seeing up there, but he is trying really, really hard to get with Garrett Maines and see if he can make that pass happen. And they're just in front of a lapped car who's going to stick to the bottom.
Yeah, they'll yield to the bottom. It's going to allow the race leaders to drive by unimpeded. But Nicholas Vroman hasn't led a single lap in tonight's race, and now he's looking to the inside of Garrett Maines for the race lead at 70 laps to go. Maines going to protect the top side. It has been a long time since Garrett Maines has had a serious challenge for the lead. Could Vroman possibly make it happen on the inside?
Vroman's doing a great job. He is gaining ground on that bottom lane. He is making himself known, little contact. But right now, Vroman's just trying to keep in his mirrors, whether it be the back mirror, the side mirrors, and just make himself felt by Garrett Maines. He's going to ride that bottom lane. We've seen that lane work in real life recently, as much as earlier today in the qualifying and practices we saw on TV, not so much in iRacing. But now he's going to back up a little bit here, Evan, and that's at least a moment right there for Nicholas Vroman. That builds confidence.
It does, and if this 3 pushes hard and doesn't get it, I said you could be more aggressive, but does he use it up a little bit too early? Watch out for Houghton and company. Those cars third on back are starting to collapse upon the leaders after those top 2 had pulled away just a little bit at the drop of the green flag on the restart. More lap traffic up the road. It is the scorned number 1 of Jacob Schneider. Schneider's night came to an end when McClenny sent him in the wall. Just keep it half eye when that 7 car laps the 1 here on the outside. They are going to get through cleanly without fireworks, but I've seen it not end so peacefully at Bristol, so just wanted to make sure they got through without incident.
Yeah, I was wondering as well. I was like, oh, this could be a moment, but no, they got it worked out. Maybe that time is kind of calmed Schneider down a little bit here. But you're right. The bigger story is that every time at any track almost that you run lap side by side, you are going to let the rest of the field catch you, because neither of you are running your best times. You're not running your best laps, nothing like that. So you let Houghton, Bolin, McClenny, Brower, and others catch you. And I've said before this, that they're catching mains as the night goes on. But this is the first time in a while, Evan, that I think we've seen 5 or 6 cars all in the same camera shot of the leader.
Is the most aggressive and most competitive restart run we've seen in a while. And there's 6 cars within a second of the race leader. You've got Mains up top, you've got Vroman behind him, small gap to Houghton in third, and then they're all over each other behind him. Bolin's P4, he's been able to get a spot back. McClenny falls to P5. Jacob Brower, on the other hand, drops down to the number 6 spot. That is that lead contingent. Remember, it was Bolin not that long ago who was third and challenging for the race win. Seemingly damaged his car when he got into the wall, fell to 5th. He's up to 4th, but still seems to be about a half tick off. And just as quick as those cars third on back closed in on these leaders, Derek, Mains and Vroman pull away again.
Yeah, so right now, if you're Houghton, if you're Bolin, you're hoping that Vroman catches him again and they get side by side, which they now are. Look at this big run on the bottom. Vroman is convinced he can make that work and comes up here side by side. And again, if they stay like that for more than a lap or two, they will let those cars back in that picture again. And I'm wondering if Vroman is not doing that on purpose because he knows what happened last time.
He does, and Vroman played it pretty fair when he went on the inside of Mains. We've seen cars trying to make the bottom work, get a little bit aggressive, right? Push up in the corner, force that car on your outside up so that you can better your turn and make it better than being pinned on the bottom, right? If you're inside of somebody, the higher up you are and the higher up the racetrack they are, the more it's like you're not on the bottom. So we've seen drivers push cars up the hill, get on their door, rub them a little bit. We didn't see any of that between Vroman and Mains, but there is still an eternity's worth of racing with 54 laps to go when the cars are this close.
Yeah, and that's very, very true. It's so close here right now. It's so hard to find an advantage of these cars. Looking back in the field a little bit here, this is going to be back behind Newman. That's Tommy Gossett, Joseph Golato, and that battle on your screen here. And they've got, of course, Clayton Hoffman behind them trying to catch up here. This is the battle for 9th, 10th, and 11th on your screen. And these guys are racing hard. That's one of the beautiful things about this special event, Evan, with this track is that it's so small. There's always multiple battles. This is not a track where you're just battling for the lead and everyone's just running laps and, kind of gliding. Everyone's in a battle for something here.
50 laps to go. That time by, we are officially in the home stretch of this 500 lap race. Garrett Mains can still lead over 400 laps for a third straight night, but he'd have to be in control to the very end to hit that number again. Vroman is close enough that any small misstep by the two could open the door, and there is going to be lap traffic in front of these cars soon. They passed Schneider a few laps ago and he was on the bottom. Where does the one car go this time? He'll go to the top side of the racetrack. Mains will clear before the exit of the corner. Vroman will not, though. This is going to hurt the 3 cars entering to the turn just a little bit.
Yeah, advantage Mains right there. You talked earlier about being a little bit lucky with lap traffic, and that's what that was. It was purely where did each driver catch up with that lapped car. And so for the moment, small advantage to Garrett Mains. But you talked about small, just mistakes. About 3 or 4 laps ago, Garrett Mains almost scrubbed the wall on the top lane. And with how close Vroman is, it's going to take one wall scrub, one minor mistake, and this will be a live race for that lead here. What I'm surprised about is that, honestly, as Mains runs the middle of the track, I'm more surprised Vroman is not moving up and trying to carry that momentum.
And we haven't seen Vroman try to get to the outside in a little bit, right? He gets to the bumper, looks to the inside, hasn't put a bumper to him yet, though, hasn't hit that desperation mode. Meanwhile, fifth on back, they're falling off of the leaders. It wasn't that long ago that these cars were within a second of the leader. Now they've fallen back to 2 seconds off at Bolin, who went up to fourth, got passed by McClenny. And Brower's trying to do this the hard way. On the bottom of the racetrack, he'd have to slide job. He thought about it. Bolin saw it coming, though, gassed it up in the center, and stayed ahead.
You know, a while ago, Bolin scrubbed the wall, and you made a comment you had wondered if something was wrong with that car. And I said maybe it was just, you know, a frustration level with Bolin that he could fix. And I'm more so beginning to think maybe you're right, because since Bolin hit that wall, it just hasn't been the same. He's not there as he once was, and that's happening. But here again is the lead. Oh, they're 3 wide. Hold on.
3 wide, door shot there. That's not good. Newman sideways. What a save. Brower slid job on the 15 car of Bolin, slid up in front of him, but put himself in the fence. It checked that car way up. Bolin crossed him over. That's where the 3 wide that we saw came from, and that was almost the end of the night for Brad Newman.
And Evan, Jacob Schneider, not C, but I guess the original, if you want to call it that. I don't know how you want to classify it. And that bright multicolored car up top, he was all over the back end of Jose Acosta. He must feel as though he's way faster, because he was impatient about making that pass.
Inside of 40 laps to go now. It's going to really start to ramp up as the times remaining on the scoring pylon continue to wind down. Battles all throughout the field as you continue to look at some of these cars. The 29 machine in this one. That's Jose Acosta. I haven't talked about him or JR Borborema much recently. Borborema trying to salvage tonight. He gets around the 29 to get back to P15, but JR was a top 5 car earlier on.
Yeah, one of the people on the bad end of that choo-choo train of the top lane that worked earlier, and so really moved him back in the field, and he's not caught up since then. But look at this in car. This is Nicholas Vroman. That's how close he is. And Evan, I have a feeling we're setting up for maybe a bump and run.
We'll see. If I'm Houghton and I know that, or if I'm Vroman, sorry, and I have the speed to get to Mains, I would not put a bumper to him with 40 laps to go, because I know that once you cross that line, I promise you, Garrett Mains will have no qualms about delivering it right back. So if you're going to rattle his cage, if you're going to get physical, you got to wait till the end. You got to time it right, so that if you do get physical and get to the race lead by a bump and run, there is not enough time left on the clock for him to pay it back to you. Clock management in this race may be what we're watching with the 3 of Roman.
Oh, I 100% agree. I would not do it. Maybe 5 to go is the soonest I would do it, because of how fast the laps happen at Bristol. But you're right. If you do it now, heck, even if you do it 10 laps to go, you're going to probably let Garrett Mains get back to you, and he will. I have a lot of respect for Garrett Mains. He's proven to be a great driver, a respectful driver, but all's fair once you start. So you're right. Be aware that could happen. Here they're now getting ready to pass Vincent Crowe. Let's see how they catch him. And Roman's trying to use Vincent Crowe as a moving chicane. This might work, Evan.
Yeah, there is a lot of lapped cars in the way, and it is going to force Mains to the bottom. This is going to eat away at the lap times for the 2. He finds a gap in line, betters his arc. If Roman going to be at the same disadvantage, you're on board with him as they both try to work the bottom. Around the 31, around the 30, next up again around the number 1 car. Both still stuck on the bottom, and if Mains can clear before the 3 does, he can get a quick lap in. It's not going to happen, though. They're both clear that time off of turn 2.
Big benefit for Broman there, because Jacob Snyder's got in the wall and sort of checked up those guys behind him and cleared the top lane pretty quickly. So Broman got up there just as fast as Garrett Mains did. No time lost in that scenario. Here we come around, almost 25 laps to go. We are 95% done with this race, Evan, and still so much could happen.
Waiting to see if Roman who has entered this conversation late. He's had a good car all night long. Let's not discredit what he's had. Started 11th place, but has been quieter than others in the top 5. We had questioned, was it going to be Graham Boland's night? He's out of it, 13th, fallen like a rock. We thought that there were going to be other drivers. Jacob Schneider had a good car. Why not for the number 1 seed driver? Didn't work out for him. There's been Newman's in the conversation. Borborema was up there earlier as well. All those drivers who we thought maybe have fallen to the wayside, and it would be the ultimate spoiler move if Vroman could somehow do it. There's a good look, at least 2 more pieces of lap traffic that are going to be encountered by the leaders. First one is Fleckenstein. Some connection issues always makes you nervous. Does he stay on the bottom? Looks like he will.
And that's a big benefit right now for both these drivers if he does that with the preferred lane being the top lane. But right now, the question to be asked is which one of these drivers picks up their second Bristol 500 win of the week, or does someone else find a way in here? And I don't know, Evan, honestly, short of maybe a caution flag flying, that anyone else could really enter this competition in due time. It's really going to be one of these 2 drivers if we stay green. Now, the problem we have, honestly, and I hate to be that guy, we've seen about what we're going to do here, about 50, 60 lap run. The tires don't always last, and somewhere in the middle to back of the field, tires become a problem, and I'm hoping that's not the case. But if you're Garrett Mains or if you're Nicholas Roman, that's got to be in your mind of all the what-ifs.
And it could be important to the point of Vroman maybe waiting to make the move if there were to be a late race yellow. Being the leader at the moment of yellow would be so critical because it would give you the control car position in theory for the restart. So there may be added incentive for Vroman to pass him now, knowing that we're getting into that 60, 70 lap old tire range where we have seen a lot of drivers in this field struggle. And we talked earlier tonight about how this race fits into the iRacing special events calendar and where we sit just this weekend, right? There are plenty more splits of this Bristol 500 to come this weekend, Derek. So I feel silly calling it the grudge match because it's only Friday night, but they've each got one and they get to settle it head-to-head.
Unfortunately, Elton John says Saturday night's all right for fighting, but these guys have picked Friday night as their night to have a battle. Oh, I got picking from. That's not okay.
Well, Nick Vroman's trying to pick a pass on the bottom, but it's just not working right now. But again, we have not seen somebody match the pace of Mains this well in over 300-something laps. And by the way, a few laps ago, Garrett Mains passed 400 laps led tonight. It is the 3rd straight top split Bristol race this week at which Mains has led over 400 laps. It has been an absolutely dynastical run for him these last few nights, but it only matters and it only counts if you end up in victory lane. That's what matters the most. And this time by, going to be coming to 11 laps to go. Looking off of the bumper of Garrett Mains. Is it in the cards for the 2 car?
Yeah, and keep in mind, we talked about Roman won here Wednesday night. He won after Garrett Mains led 432 laps. So anything's still possible. Garrett Mains finished that race 9 laps down after a late race incident. So hopefully that's not the case here. 11 to go on the board. And these guys are battling out pretty hard here. So now Roman's got to think ahead. Now he's going to think, I probably have one shot, maybe one opportunity, maybe one chance to seize everything he ever wanted.
That poor 1 car of Jacob Schneider was such a competitor earlier, so it feels bad every time these leaders lap him. It's happening every handful of laps with how off-pace that car is in the number 25 spot. There is a big pack of lap cars fighting for position that these leaders are maybe going to get to before the race is done. Look at that, 6 of them up the road. If they catch them, and it looks like they may, that's going to be what decides this, is who gets through it cleaner.
Yeah, who gets through it cleaner. And all of them are riding the top lane. If you're either driver, Mains or Roman, you're almost kind of screaming, please get down, please get down, please don't make me take the bottom. So we'll wait and see how this plays out here. Roman again tries to dig to that bottom. And we'll see if this plays out here. I think this lap traffic probably maybe benefits Roman and gives him a better chance to make that bump and run work if that's how he wants to do it.
Seems like any variable advantage to the challenger. It is showtime in Thunder Valley with less than 5 laps to go and an iRacing Bristol 500 on the line. Vroman able to get around the lap traffic, still on the heels of Mains, but there is heavy traffic coming up next. Caution! This race is not.
Oh no!
Upside down is Brad Newman from P10.
Wow. How he got upside down and like at Bristol, I'm curious, interested, confused, and many, many more things to see how to happen here. Now this will change everything, Evan. Watch this replay first. His Brad Newman's going to get bumped by the 8, turned around.
Jeez.
Else, wow.
He got finished off too, pushed into the corner and then the TKO to make sure he was done. He got run through by Joseph Galata, who he was funnied with for position.
Usually you'd say hold your brakes, but, well, that didn't matter in that case right there. He just went right down the track. Well, here we go. New tires is the story. Here's Garrett Mains. Here's Roman, Houghton, everyone. PB Henry, everyone's staying down. Right now, Clayton Hoffman looks to have stayed out, Evan.
Yeah, Gitter, DiCiani, Galata, Schneider, Smith. I mean, why not? If they do, in fact, decide to stay out, there's going to be a 2-lap sprint to the end. The more cars that stay out betters the odds for the first cars that stay out, because it's going to be physical race cars in between you and the Garrett Mains and other drivers, right? You are going to be nowhere near as fast as they are. But if you can put enough cars in between you and them to survive 30 seconds, which is all it takes to get 2 trips around this place, maybe it could be crazy enough to work. Mains sticks with the 4 tires. He's the first car off of pit road. PB Henry, right side tires only. He's going to go with 2 tires. It looked like Nick Vroman. Did he decide to go for 2 tires also? I'm showing a pretty quick pit stop for Vroman. We'll wait to confirm that, as there's a whole bunch of drivers in and out of the pit lane, but we've got all kinds of strategies in play.
Well, let's talk about what happens. This is Bristol 500 overtime. 3 attempts is what we get. 3 attempts at a green-white checkered. So this is attempt number 1. As Evan would tell you, we're going to go green. If we come back and we take the white flag, all bets are off. It's whoever gets back to the line first. If we have a caution, we'll rack it up and we'll do it again. If you're Garrett Mains, you need there to be multiple cautions here. You are not going to make up those spots, I don't think, in one green-white checker. The more cautions there are, the better the news it is for Garrett Mains trying to repeat.
I'm still trying to figure out what happened with Vroman. There's Schneider's perspective of the wreck. Vroman took 2 tires, left pit road ahead of Mains, and I think may have been penalized for speeding or something. He left pit road ahead of Garrett Mains and then had to yield that position on the racetrack. So Nick Vroman, the challenger, gone just like that. Your top 4 cars, top 5 even, on 82 lap old tires. First car on freshies, it is 4 Goodyear Eagles for Garrett Mains, but is he boxed in? That 2 car is on the outside of row number 3. They have
watch for tires
to the white. For this race to be official, it's Clayton Hoffman up front. Green flag in the air. 2 laps to go.
Oh, the tire spin was big up top, I believe, for that car up top. A big gap here. Look at that. Shooting right through. I said he couldn't do it. Hold on. Caution. And Garrett Mains just made up like 4 spots, Evan. What? How? What?
And it's helpful that I think the reason for the yellow was Garrett Mains driving through the car in front of him. Fresh tires. We knew he had to be aggressive, and watch Mains. He's going to go 3 wide. It's kind of a half lane, but he just disposed of the 8 car. They wreck behind. Good timing for the caution. Gets him to P2. I think that all but guarantees he's going to win this race.
Wow, that's... that is... Wow, that's not intentional. I don't believe that was intentional by any means by Garrett Mains. It's hard driving and probably thought he could shoot that gap, but you're right. The fact he made up all those spots on Clayton Hoffman just like that. Yeah, unless Clayton Hoffman gets a great jump on both these restarts and the caution just immediately flies, you're right. It's probably a Garrett Maines race. Watch this again here. Here's the start. He thinks he's clear, and he's not. And yeah, then 8 just got destroyed in the back end of the field.
And I don't like to be a victim blamer, but if you're Joseph Galata and you know that the guy behind you's got fresh tires, why are you a half a car length up off of the bumper of the 4, right? I mean, you got to be mirror driving to keep that guy behind you if you want any hope, unless he was trying to get out of the way. But yes, the 2 car is at fault because the driver behind is the one who has the decision on if he's going to hit you or not. But if I'm the 8 car, I don't even leave that door halfway open either.
Yeah, that is a part of racing. We teach drivers, do not leave doors open. You know, I think the more prominent spot you see that, Evan, is a super speedway when drivers want to drift up off the yellow line and leave a gap there. You'll see people just want to shoot it, and bad things happen. But yeah, that's aggressive. You know, Garrett Maines thought he probably had to make a move. He got a better jump. There was some wheel spin. You know, I think Patrick Gitter on the outside really just checked up that top lane, and people felt the need to make things happen, and that's what happens here. I don't necessarily like it. I don't approve of it per se. I don't think it was intentional. It's just about 104 bad circumstances all coming together at one time.
And again, we'll go to attempt number 2 of 3 at iRacing Overtime. We have to get all the way to the white flag for this race to be official. If we get there, doesn't matter what happens, first car to the checkered flag wins. Clayton Hoffman's going to fire off first, but with 80-lap older tires, I don't see any scenario in which he holds off Garrett Maines. Maines needs to be careful to not jump this restart and watch a penalty at the start-finish line. Hoffman's going to be able to go first as the leader, and by the iRacing rules, should have to be the first car to the start-finish line as the lights go off, and we'll try it this next time by. Row number 2, Patrick Gitter, Matt DiCiani, also on 88-lap old tires. If you're looking at somebody who can go apples to apples with Garrett Maines on the 4 fresh tires, you got to go all the way down to James Houghton back in P8. PB Henry, Cade McClenney, 6th and 7th. Yes, they pitted, but they only took 2. I mean, it is Garrett Maines on an island on the 4 tires up front. He is the class of those cars, and he has been the class of the field tonight. Can he shut it down and get what he feels is his race win? Big pushes from row number 2. Green flag in the air with 2 laps to go. Hoffman leads into turn 1. Here comes Garrett Maines on the outside. Maines to the race lead.
There it is, the 3 wide, multiple rows in the back here as Maines takes 4 wide. They're going to keep it green. It's white flag. No wreck caution here. Oh my God, big wreck. And Garrett Maines is probably going to walk away with this.
Big wreck, but white flag was in the air. Garrett Maines up front, 417 laps led, and back-to-back wins in the Bristol 500.
Not without controversy, I think it's a nice way to say it, Evan, but Garrett Maines drove away as a big calamity happened behind me he had nothing to do with. And that was a that'll massively change where people finish in this race compared to where they started that last restart. But Garrett Maines, as you said, led over 1,300 laps in 3 races, has won twice. If it wasn't before, this may now be his favorite track.
And there will be the discourse over the contact on the late restart with Garrett Maines because it's Garrett Maines, and that's why there'll be the discourse. Do you blame the guy who ran through somebody to go for the race win? Do you blame the car who decided to stay out on 80-lap old tires knowing that it would probably cause a wreck? There's a middle ground in there somewhere. Everyone's going to have an opinion, but one thing that you cannot deny is that Garrett Maines was the best car at the track tonight. He has been the best car at the Bristol Motor Speedway this week, and he has won his 2nd top split Bristol 500 of the week. Take a look at the replay. He gets clear of the race lead quick right there off of turn number 2, but then this wreck was awfully close, Derek, to happening before Maines got to the white flag.
Yeah, look at this. There's Graham Bolin in the middle or in the bottom of the track now. Jacob Schneider involved. The Ryko cars are involved. I think Jose Medina's right there. There's Maggie McGuire getting by on the bottom, sort of surviving the wreck multiple laps down. But wow, that's going to massively, as I said, change where people finished in this race, or if they finished. As you said, once the white flag comes out, all bets are off.
Take a look at your full race results. It is a total of 417 laps led for your race winner tonight. It is Garrett Maines for the second time in 3 starts so far this week. Jacob Brower will peak at a race high P2 at the very end of it. James Houghton was the second best. He ends up in 3rd place in this one. Nick Vroman, Tommy Gossett, the top 5. Patrick Gitter, Clayton Hoffman, Cabe McClenny, PB Henry, and Jose Acosta, your top 10. Those top 10 look very different than they did on the final restart.
They really do, yeah. Aaron Smith the second's going to be back in 11th. J.R. Bobarina's back in 12th. Jacob Schneider's in 13th. These are the cars all involved in that massive pileup. Then Graham Bolin, the first car, 1 lap down. Matt DeCanny, Paul Bergoli. And then multiple laps down, John Wittendorf, Vincent Crowe, Maggie McGuire, and Kagan Fleckenstein.
Same story for all these drivers. They were having good nights. Brad Newman was a top 10 car until he was on his lid late in this one. Joseph Galata, Oscar Enriquez, Cody Richardson, Jacob Schneider, the top-seeded driver. Jacob Klein, Alan Punjari had a couple of twists and turns. Same with James Holtz, Matt Cox, and Nicholas Padovich.
We'll round out the field, the last 4. Nathan Biggert, who blew that motor about 264 laps ago. Ronald Cross, Omar Duallo, and Tyler Lateral round out this 34-car field.
It's a look top to bottom at your full race results. Let's talk with the king of Bristol Motor Speedway, because nobody has been better at this racetrack this week than Garrett Maines. He's a winner again tonight. We have him now. Garrett, congratulations on another win in the Bristol 500.
Thank you. That was a wild race all the way up till 3 to go. I thought Roman was gonna give me a run for my money there. It's just really disappointing to see the finish get interrupted like that. But it was really cool to have such a good showing with all my Ryko teammates there. We were 1, 2, 3 most of the night, or at least in contention for it. So it was a good night for us.
And tell us about that battle with Vroman, because that takes us all the way back to what we saw Wednesday night in the top split of this, where you, again, much like tonight, had a dominant race, led 432 laps, but it fell apart late. He gets the win. So tonight, kind of a grudge match between the two of you, trying to break the tie with 1 win apiece, and seemed like he was, again, just kind of camped out and pitched a tent on your bumper there late.
Yeah, Wednesday's a sore subject because my internet cut out and my dad and I both got kicked out of the race, and my dad thought it was over. But unfortunately, we just dropped for about 60 seconds and I came back 9 laps down. So that was really disappointing because I'd led about 432 to that point. Didn't really get to duke it out. Basically, that was about to be the battle that we would have seen on Wednesday with that caution. But yeah, he kept me honest, that's for sure. James was all over me the first run, and I let him go there when he finally got to my right rear, and just I wanted to see how it would pan out. But when Vroman got to me there, I kind of expected him to fall off a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I raced him on Thursday, and the amount that we were fighting, I thought that the leader would have a distinct advantage by the time the tires got hot and everybody got tires worn out. But he was able to keep me honest that entire run, and I have not felt that tight all week, just because I've been driving it in so deep to try to manage my tires. I felt like he was going to have a shot for me there.
What is it about this Bristol Motor Speedway that has allowed you to lead over 400 laps in all 3 attempts so far this week? What is it that makes this such a good racetrack for the way you drive?
I think there's a huge aspect of track position is really key here. It's not that it's well, actually it is. It's hard to pass. But you can get positions all the way up until top 5 pretty easily. It's, when you start getting to people that are of equal speed, whether it be skill or car, there's not much separation, especially between the Ryko teammates. We finished from at least house drivers 1, 3, 4, 5. So the whole time we were up there, like I knew if I gave the position to James, I was gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get it back. And the same would have been true for Roman. Like it's so difficult to gain an advantage, so much so that sometimes it was just like, okay, you kind of have to ride here and just make sure that somebody doesn't get to your right rear, because you kind of just rock somebody to sleep and then pounce on the right rear and try to take the spot. It's difficult here just because the bottom goes away so quickly. The middle and the top are pretty even, but you need the whole racetrack to make it work. And there at the end, once the tires get worn out, I mean, it's really who can get to the power first. And I wasn't sure that was going to be me, so I was definitely disappointed to not get to finish that out. I mean, we were coming to 2 to go, and we get a caution. I'm like, classic NIS right here. But it was a good fight. I mean, like I said, props to him. He kept me honest all the way through. I thought he might get it.
We always appreciate the opportunity to watch the very best of the best do battle, and tonight was another example of that, Garrett. Congratulations on the win. We appreciate your time, and best of luck in the Coke finale in a couple of weeks. I know you got a lot riding on that one as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and I got to give a huge shout out to Scott at MCU Body, Lennox, all the guys at Ryko for all the hard work they put in this car. I think before the week started, they had like 3,000 laps on it, so it really goes to show, like, in the results that we've had this week, like, that hard work pays off. So big thank you to those guys. Also, thank you to Left Court Brothers and FGRXL for their support.
So far this week, he's been the king of Bristol. It is another top split Bristol 500 win for Garrett Maines. Comes tonight after leading 417 laps. Derek, we'll continue post-race coverage. James Houghton was the second most laps led and the only other driver to lead laps in this race. He led 83 of them en route to a third place finish. We'll see if you can get him.
Well, James, you had a really strong start to this race tonight. You led some laps, you got around Garrett Maines, and it looked like for a while maybe you were going to be the king of Bristol tonight. What happened to kind of Garrett got back around you?
I was trying to pass one of the lap cars, and I got a little tiny bit loose. I just didn't feel like I had quite enough space on corner exit. And I thought, it's still an early race. Maybe I'll just give it back to him for now, because he kind of had a run right as I was getting loose, and I thought, I'll just give it back to him. I'll get it later. Giving it back to Garrett Maines is probably a bad idea when it's as hard to pass as it is at Bristol. I'm pretty aggressive here, and I'm willing to burn my tires more than I should, but the opportunity just kind of never came around again. And on that last restart, well, not the last one, but the last longer run there, I kind of got a bad start, and Roman got a great start, and I kind of ended up in third. Pretty frustrating for that last caution to come out. We finish NIS way too many times under caution. And when people make bonehead moves with 2 to go, 3 to go, whatever, it's like, what's the point? You just get your friends wrecked and stuff like that. When you have that many people stay out with hardly any laps to go, and you're 1.3 seconds off on a 14-second lap, it's just going to end up crappy for everyone. So it's kind of a shame for that. I was lucky to get through it, but just kind of disappointing. Even though, a few of us ended up with decent finishes, it's not the way it should have ended.
Well, a few questions. I'll start with a question about that sort of end of race caution with 2 to go. Were you as surprised as I was to see a car upside down at Bristol?
I'm never surprised with what people will do to get that caution out when there's just a few laps to go in a 500 lap race. It's just it's so disappointing when the person not only that does that causes that caution, then is one of the people to stay out, and that creates more carnage. It's just the whole thing is, I know it's not a thing that you can police. It is what it is, but just so frustrating.
So speaking of staying out, my last question for you is going to be for the penultimate caution. A bunch of you came down and took tires of varying strategies, 2s. I think we saw 2. We saw some 4s. Was there a moment when you thought, hey, what if I stay out? Or were you always committed to taking tires on that caution?
If we had ran 14.9 on our last lap instead of 15.5, I would have absolutely stayed out. But when you're 15.5, you're not even going to hardly be able to launch. I'm surprised that no one just, didn't hook a right-hand turn when they started it. The cars had better drive than I kind of expected on the restart. But I just think that, after you spend 500 laps in a race like this, I think that, we deserve it to our fellow iRacers to come down pit road and and grab a set of tires. If it's a mile and a half or something like that, it's a different story. But man, on a track like this, you just know everyone's going to wreck. And what do you know? Everyone wrecked.
Everyone did wreck. Well, listen, James, great run tonight in P2. And I guess hopefully, well, I don't know, are you planning on doing more Bristol 500s, or is this your ending of this week?
I'll be doing a real life race on Sunday, so I won't be able to do that. But I'll be doing some A Opens for the rest of the week, and just want to really thank Ryko Performance for giving us these great sets. You know, giving us the space to build as drivers, and just a special place to be.
All right. Well, listen, good luck in your race on Sunday, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's James Houghton finishing P2 in that number 14 machine.
Big thanks to James and Garrett for giving us some time post-race to chat. And again, aside from the mains dominance, it is the Ryko dominance as a whole. Their cars were up front. We saw them all night long, and they cashed in with several drivers finishing in the top 5 and the top 10. And Derek, so there goes another iRacing special event into our rearview mirror. And while we look forward to the rest of this special events calendar, one more reminder, there are more Bristol 500s this week. If you want to participate, look for those sessions on the iRacing service. But as far as our special presentation goes, we look forward to the Knoxville Nationals.
Yeah, the Knoxville Nationals will be next and as soon. And of course, the Bathurst 1000, Petite Le Mans, and many, many more to come. Check out iRacing.com or the iRacing forums for all the details on these events. And Evan, it's been a great night. Lots of fun, lots of beating and banging. But I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
It is, and if you feel like the racing calendar is starting to wind down, don't worry. If you count this week, still 9 iRacing special events to go. If you want to participate, I implore you to do so. And of course, we hope that you join us for these special broadcasts every time they happen. Until next time, though, that's it for us from Bristol. On behalf of our entire team at RaceSpotTV, for our producer, Hugo Luis, for Derek Watson, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to say thanks for tuning in, and congratulations to Garrett Maines, who's once again an iRacing Bristol 500 winner. Wins Pocono and wins his way to the playoffs. Bobby Zelensky gonna double down in 2024. He goes back-to-back at the Chicago Street Course. He's headed back to the championship for Steven Wilson, winner at Texas Motor Speedway. Parker White wins at Phoenix and will fight for an NASCAR championship in 2024.